couple minutes after. Are we good to start? Renee, are you good to?
Yep.
All right.
Hi.
Everybody good?
Yep.
Thumbs up, thumbs up. Ready? Great. I'd like to call to order the Snoqualmie Valley School District Board of Directors meeting for Thursday, November 14th, 2024. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and I think it's obvious for those that are here or watching, but Director Fancher is unable to attend tonight, and he is not able to dial in either. All right, next is approval of the minutes of the October 24th, 2024 regular board meeting. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously. And next is communications and recognition.
And I'd like to invite Principal Hayap.
Anybody wants to see you?
I'm very excited tonight to get to introduce some students to you and celebrate them and their amazing academic skills. And so I'm going to invite the students to come up with me. That would be great. And in the process, one of the reasons this is one of my favorite things, not just because we get to recognize students, but in my role, I get to interact with a lot of students, and yet getting to have like one-on-one conversations or like 1 to 5 conversations and getting to know them. I don't always get to do it, so getting to do this type of work really helps. So thanks for being here tonight. I really appreciate you. So this will be an opportunity to honor you and honor all of your hard work and also celebrate. Okay. So I have a little slide deck for you, and then we ask, one of the questions we ask is, what is a fun fact or a silly fact about yourself? And partly because I like us to talk about the whole child, and that they are working really, really hard, but they also get to be teenagers and doing all the things that they get to do. And really in this school district and in this building, they do really fascinating things. I'm 100% sure their life is 100 times more interesting than mine could ever be. So it's always really impressive. Ready? Oh, I'm doing it? Oh, my apologies. That's why he's not looking at me. That makes way more sense. Thanks. Appreciate it. All right, as I said, we are here to celebrate our National Merit Scholars, and they are broken down into 2 categories, the Commended Scholars as well as the semifinalists. And so here is our 7 Commended Scholars, and obviously not every student was able to be here tonight, but we're going to get a chance to learn about Olivia and Amanda and Logan and Sajid and Jordan and Aaliyah and Braden. And then our semifinalists, and we're really excited to share with you that we have 4 this year, with James and Benjamin and Liam and Richard. And the best story about Richard is he's already graduated from us, but we still get to celebrate him, and he participated in the slide deck, because this process, I can thank Tanya Alter for the help with this. She sends it out to the students, and then they get to give the information, and then she works for a couple of weeks to gather more information, and Richard was just the best. So our first student that we're going to celebrate is James, and you can see here on the slide deck that James plans on pursuing education at the university level. He's already in Running Start. He's studying for a physics exam for tomorrow. I saw that when he was back there. I was like, what math are you doing? And his mom was like, he's doing physics. And then he's going to have his field of study is going to be physics. And then I was very fascinated by his fun fact, which was that he has raised a Florida king snake. How large was it?
When I got it, it was about, couldn't tell, we're about yay big probably. It was a few years ago, so I don't remember.
Got it. Yeah, so it was a fun fact. I'm like, I don't even know what you do with Florida king snake, but you got one. So what do you feed it?
Mice and rats of varying sizes.
Okay, there you go. And then Benjamin, who, he's not here tonight, and I know he's not here, because he made a very big deal about the fact that his UW application is due tonight, or tomorrow morning, and he's like, Miss A, you don't even know how much I have to get done. I'm like, okay, fair enough, it's more important, I hear ya. So four-year university, obviously UW's one of them, undecided in his field, but he's an amazing trumpet player for our band, and so he participates in our music program. And then Liam is here with his parents tonight, and also planning on attending a four-year university, and has an amazing skill with languages. How many languages would you say that you know, Liam?
Competently 2, I'd say I'm trying at 3.
Yeah, so competently 2, trying at 3. So that's 2 more than I have, so I appreciate you. Thank you. And then is planning on using that with foreign service or linguistics. So thank you, Liam. And then here's our fun friend Richard, who is out already at Cornell University, so graduated early, has high capacity for a lot of things, and is there now studying computer science. I think his fun fact was also one of my favorites, because I don't know what it means to leave 2 successive AP tests incomplete, other than to be like, I'm just not done. I'm okay, and I'm okay with it. So, and he's apparently excited to come back for winter break, so appreciate him so much. And then Olivia is not here tonight as well. Amazing swimmer in our swim program, planning on studying computer engineering, and is not decided on what four-year college she's going to be going to yet. And then Aaliyah, I thought she was going to get to be here, but as you can see, she has a lot of amazing talents. Aaliyah is part of our team that has won Girls Cross Country State 2 years in a row. She has a twin. Her and her sister have. Huh? Oh, yeah, we're talking about you right now. That's so perfect. I was fascinated by her field of study, which is going to be around potentially engineering design around running shoes. Quite fitting for her life and what she works on. But I think what is also amazing is the fact that it's incredibly difficult to win state 2 years in a row. It's incredibly difficult just to win at all. And the fact in the way cross country is done as being an individual as well as a team sport. And then the fact that they 2 years in a row beat the second team by double digits in a land of competition in which I really like to win. And the fact that we won by 38 points, killer. So really amazing. So, and has just committed to Washington State University.
Congratulations.
And then our friend Jordan here. Jordan's fun fact is also amazing because apparently there's an ability to hoard sriracha sauce, and so Miss Easthope's very excited to see you because she has a sriracha keychain. So I know, she's very excited to talk to you about it. So he plans on going to a four-year university and can see his field of study with astrophysics. It's quite broad range, so I'm impressed by that. So you could come back and maybe work with Mr. Polium. Could be fun, yeah. So ask between the astrophysics and then potentially becoming a teacher. So we're excited for him and the next steps that he's going to get to do. And then we have Sachin here, and his fun fact is, if you can't tell, he's a pretty tall human, and so he let us know he was 6'5". But his course of study is computer science, business, entrepreneurship, and also looking at what four-year school he's going to be going to. So thank you. And then Logan is here as well. I have not personally asked Logan how he got the driver's license that allows him to vote in 50 states. Is it 1 license or 50 licenses?
I just got 2 licenses.
2 licenses, and it covered all 50 states. Did not know that, so impressive. And then he is planning on studying aerospace engineering. And then Amanda here is part of our Camerata Choir. If you've ever come to one of our concerts, she often is a soloist, and she has a really amazing voice. And the plan is to study design, engineering, or psychology at the university level, so thank you. And then Braden as well, he is part of our trades class with building, and in partnership with Green Team, they're currently building their shed that's going to work, and so that was something that he was really proud of and really excited about. And I think in looking at him as an example, I think the breadth of students that we have, and again, the offerings that we have here in our school and in our district, really lends itself to a student leaving with a full experience. And the ability to have the 28 credits gives them the flexibility to choose the classes and really explore for free. And we love that because I always tell them it's the last time you're going to get the free education in this way. So explore all of it. So it's a great example. Looks like his plan is to go to the police academy and a 4-year school. Okay, well that is our amazing humans, and we're super excited for all of them. So I think they want a photo of us, so we'll come, right?
All of us or just?
Why not?
Why not?
You guys want to join too? You can
Your 10 points off finally gets you the phone.
Everybody get nice and tied here. There you go. Couple suits can come on this side too. Then you just slide over. Not everybody at once. There we go. Okay. Ready? 1, 2, and 3. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Fine, she was an 8th grader, right, that wrote the letter?
Yes, I think so.
Invite Connor up.
Connor, oh, am I inviting him up?
You want her to do
I
it?
can. Connor, you're being beckoned. I don't know how to. You have an announcement?
We want to share a little bit. Our strategic plan is done. We still have some work to do as far as making it digestible for our families and our students and all of our stakeholders. But Connor's going to share a little bit of our work and share also on the next steps that we'll be taking.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I'll make this quick. I know we have an action-packed board agenda today, but congratulations on getting the strategic plan done. That's the big step for you guys. Now my fun begins. So basically what the first thing is the strategic plan is now up on the website. It's available for families to see. And that was really just to get the old strategic plan out of there, get the new one up. And so benchmarks, key components, indicators, all those are available for families to see. But that's your work. That's the work that's going to drive our staff. Putting it in a format that our families can easily understand. What are those values? What are those focus? What are those priorities? We're going to put that in a nice little package for families. Do a kickoff video, all kind of probably right after the first of the year. Put it all together. Make sure we're educating our staff on the work that you did and those key themes. That way, we're all using the same elevator pitch of what's our goals for the next 5 years. So that's all coming. I'm going to work directly with Dan on all that. He will kind of work with you individually of where we're headed, coming up with that tagline and those kinds of things. I won't tease too much out. We're going to kind of do that in phases, but we're really excited. We should have some of our marketing collateral done here the next week or two to show you, to make some fine tunes and then get some of those printed and get them out to our families. And then again, the kickoff video for the strategic plan is coming here about a month. So that's the work we're going to be doing on, and work through Dan if you have any questions or contact me directly. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And Connor, just to clarify for
Yes.
those, it's going to, the way that you're creating the communication and the media is going to be very consumable for families, for community,
Absolutely.
for
Think
students.
of those quick words that we're going to be focusing on. Those values, those focuses, the priorities, not into the weeds.
Yep.
Everything will have a QR code. Yeah, sure. If you want to go and read the strategic plan and find out what the work the board did, it's going to be available. The stuff that we're going to be focusing on is going to be the higher level, those key themes that are going to be kind of fun and digestible for our families. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. So next is public comment. We do not have anybody signed up to speak tonight. I do want to make a note that we did have one written public comment, and it will be attached to the minutes. And it was written by an 8th grader at SMS, and it is amazing. So it's one of those, not only from, she saw an opportunity, well, they saw an opportunity, something that they wanted to improve, and instead of just complaining about it, they actually wrote a letter, did some research on some suggestions. So not only did they do something, but they also wrote it in such a professional, maybe they used AI, maybe they didn't, because we've got this big conversation, but they did not. It was amazingly and very, very thoughtfully written. So I just have to make that comment. Anybody that's looking at the minutes, I urge you to open it up and read it because it was pretty amazing.
And I apologize, I did miss a few things during communication.
Oh, we have to back up?
Yeah, so is that all right?
Okay, yeah.
I have a whereas and whereas to do.
Oh dear.
Okay, we are adjusting the agenda and going back to section 1 to 1.04.
And I'll go as quickly as I can. We already recognize our National Merit Scholars, but we also want to recognize that November is Native American Heritage Month. And that partnership is certainly with the Snoqualmie tribe and our Native American community and how important that is. It's also Kindness Month, and we read a proclamation at the last board meeting, but especially important at the in November and every month. The week of the November 4th through the 8th was National School Psychologist Week. And November 22nd, we could not survive without these individuals, is Substitute Educator Day. And to go along with our Native American Heritage Month, I do have a proclamation from the governor. So I'll go ahead and read that. Whereas Native Americans have inhabited the area now known as Washington State since time immemorial, and today 29 federal recognized Indian tribes, out-of-state tribes with treaties, reserved rights, and other tribal communities reside in Washington. And whereas members and descendants of tribes around the United States and First Nations of Canada also reside in the state of Washington. And whereas Native American contributions and values have shaped the social, political, environmental, and economic fabric of the state, while also enhancing freedom, prosperity, and cultural diversity. And whereas state law RCW 43.376 directs the governor and state agencies to establish government-to-government relationships with tribes to enhance and formalize working relationships with the tribes through collaboration and consultation. And whereas state law RCW 28A.320.170 mandates the teaching of tribal history, culture, and government in common schools, which will contribute greatly to improving schools' history, curriculum, and enhancing awareness for a better cultural understanding. And whereas state law RCW 13.60.010 concerning the creation of an endangered missing persons advisory designation for missing Indigenous person became law on June 9th, 2022, which allows law enforcement to broadcast messages to the public through radio, media, and other outputs in order to help locate missing Indigenous persons and address the epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women and people. And whereas the state of Washington has designated the Friday immediately following the fourth Thursday in November as state legal and school holiday, known as Native American Heritage Day. And whereas Washington joins other states across the nation in celebrating Native American Heritage Month, honoring the unique heritage of the continent's first people and reaffirming the commitment to respect each tribe's sovereignty and cultural identity. Now, therefore, Jay Inslee, Governor of the state of Washington, does hereby proclaim November 24th as Native American Heritage Month and November 29th, 2024 as Native American Heritage Day in Washington, and encourage all people in our state to join in this special observance. That's it.
All right. All right, now we are moving to section 3, for real this time.
For real. Yeah.
So we do not have any gifts to the district, so we will just move on with asking, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. So, seconded.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Next is information and report items.
And we'll invite our athletic director, or Andrea, do you want to? Okay, we'll invite our athletic director, Jordan Savage, up.
Hi, Jordan.
All right, let me just set this up really quick. Oh. Do I have to not? Okay, so screen share.
Do we have a holiday then? Oh, okay.
Is it showing up on your end?
Not yet.
Not yet.
IT.
Oh,
It's on Columbus Day too. So I just know the last few years we ended up having it. No student day. Everyone has a fit thinking we're last year they no, I thought it was for Columbus Day. Like, oh my god, they just ended on that.
all right. Well, thank you for helping me get set up here. And thank you for the opportunity to talk about what's happening at Mount Si High School outside of the classroom. It is an honor to be able to support our students and our staff in athletics and academics and in their activities. And so I just want to talk about what's been happening since I came on board in July. And I'll do a little introduction of myself for those of you that don't know me very well. I attended Mount Si High School myself. I graduated in 1999. I loved Mount Si, everything about it. I was involved with athletics and band and ASB, like all the things. Mount Si High School gave me opportunities that I didn't know was possible just from my upbringing. Opportunities weren't there, and so this kind of was a gateway for me to be able to move into doing amazing things as a young adult. And then when I got married and we had kids, we just moved back here and raised kids for about 15 years, and then decided to come back to Mount Si in a different capacity other than a student. So it is such an honor and a pleasure. I know I said that. These kids here are amazing. They have great ideas. They're passionate. They have so many great things to offer this community and then the rest of the world as they move out. And so I just want to talk about some of the things that we've been doing here. So for athletics, I'm showing on this screen an updated version because what was submitted a week ago is old information now. So we know with football, so this is just kind of like a current snapshot of what's happening. So football lost their game, so they're done for the season. Volleyball competes tonight to see if they're going to attend the state tournament. And then girls soccer lost in their match last night, their first round of state, which is very tough. Girls swim and dive will be competing tomorrow and Saturday for swim. They have 2 relays, 2 individual events. For the first time ever, we have one student, Aspen Sinout, who is competing in 4 events. So that's a first for girls swim, which is pretty phenomenal. And then as Ms. Hay already established and then noted that the girls cross country team won state for the 2nd year in a row, which is just mind blowing. I mean, these are amazing athletes. And they train well, they're dedicated, and it's very exciting to support that. On here you see the numbers. We have increasing numbers of participation for quite a few of the sports. The numbers in parentheses are the kids that, the entire number of who tried out or wanted to be a part of it, and then for the cut sports, they weren't able to participate. So a lot of you know about our new scheduling, multi-classification scheduling. There are a lot of feelings and opinions about it, but I'm just going to kind of explain just kind of a brief overview of what it is. So they tried to just divvy up based on 3 years of data, kind of abilities for teams in sports. And so you see football and girls soccer are both in the Crown Division. Girls swim is in Lake, boys tennis is Mountain, and then volleyball is in Crown. The individual sports, it's not as critical, it doesn't impact as much, but what happens is that they're all, each the Crown, because there's Crest, Crown, Lake, and Mountain, and each 4 have their own set of schedules. So if we have, we have 3 different groupings just within our school. That's a lot of complicated scheduling for the kids to keep track of, but then also just for us as we support them. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how it plays out with the opinions and the feelings and the impact that the kids are actually experiencing at the end of each season. All the ADs, all the coaches, and all the athletes have an opportunity to fill out a survey to just say what their experience was like. Was it great? Not so great? Because it's important that the stakeholders be able to say what's happening. What does it feel like? How is it impacting their season? How is it impacting their possible future, right? If they want to go compete in athletics after high school. So it's been very wonky, very bumpy. A lot of, like I said, a lot of opinions and a lot of feelings about the why, and so that's to be determined if it's going to continue. And I will always support what's best for Mount Si High School, and it might be contrary to what other people are voicing in the room, but my heart and my purpose is to do what's best for Mount Si High School and our community. We also have the addition of, it's kind of a different 4A for Lincoln. So they're in the Metro League, and they're the only 4A school in Seattle. So they kind of join us when we start going into districts so that they could find a pathway into states. So that's where you see, like, we start at Kinko, then Lincoln joins in, and then we combine with Wesco and do a district with, it's like a kind of a tri-district with Wesco and Metro and Kinko, and then we go and compete at the state tournament.
So, Jordan, do you
Yes.
want us to hold questions, or do you want us to ask questions now?
You can ask questions, sure.
So was this, I mean, I'm not a fan of this name because we're in a very, very hard division, but for a couple of them, based on a lot of students that left last year and the last 3 years, but who did this? Was it Kinko, or was it WIA, or was it all just Kinko that said we need to make this more competitive?
From what I've learned in my meetings and conversations, it was initiated and promoted by Kinko ADs.
Okay.
And it was not, I don't know that it was a majority, that it was just it was brought to the table by a couple people, and then it kind of
Just
took
happened.
off.
Got
And
it.
so that's been very interesting for me to try to navigate on building relationships with these other Kinko ADs, but then also voicing concerns and that sort of thing.
Awesome. So I did not hear that that there was going to be a survey and they were going to reevaluate it. So that's good news, because at
Mhm.
least, and they are going to ask, are they going to ask the athletes, you said?
Yes. So it's
Awesome.
required for ADs to fill it out and strongly suggested for coaches, and then it's optional for students.
Awesome.
So I'm telling my coaches, you have those
Do it.
kids
Yeah.
fill it out.
Yep.
And where there's actually a data collecting committee for Kinko, and I'm on that.
Yep.
To be assessing all the data
Awesome.
that comes in, just to make sure that it's fully represented on what comes in and what the impact
That's
is.
awesome. And good on Kinko for actually following up and having a survey with, including the
I
athletes
agree.
in particular.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I agree. All right, so there are so many things going on in this school. So I just wanted to kind of do a brief snapshot. Like, if I talked about everything that happened just until now, we would be here all night, and I don't think everybody wants to do that. So cheer, they just competed. They were regional division winners. It's pretty amazing what they do, because they spend this time to go cheer on football and then women's basketball. They do all of our state send-offs, they participate in all of our assemblies, and then they are training on their own so they can compete competitively at the state and national level. So they're pretty tremendous, and it's amazing to see what they've been doing. Debate, they hit the ground running once school started, from all their meetings and trainings, and then we got Gig Harbor tournament. People did some amazing performances and recognition. We even got one of our student representatives in some of those pictures up there. So little Miss Grayson Davis. So it's very exciting just to see what they're doing around the school. And then you see some pictures. So there are a lot of pictures about kids, because that's what this is all about. We had our homecoming, what is it called? The homecoming rally. Yes, thank you. The homecoming rally was a pretty big hit. We had clubs out there galore, and it was just so fun. It was a great energy. You can see the numbers of participation for clubs currently. That's from like the last couple of weeks. I got those numbers from all the advisors. There are obviously a lot of crossovers, but there are a lot of offerings for kids, and it's exciting. I feel like with how big this high school is and just the variety of interests, that there's something for everybody here. And so it's very exciting that we have advisors that want to give out their time to support that and help these kids learn something new and participate in something outside of the classroom. And it's so important because it helps kids feel connected, and it helps them see, because it's easy to be lost and it's easy to feel unnoticed in such a large school. And so when kids are a part of a club or a sport or an activity, it kind of makes the world a little bit smaller and they're known. And that's what keeps them connected and feel like this is their Mount Si also.
Quick question. I mean,
Yeah.
this is wonderful. If you take unique students who are in clubs, what would be that count? Like there are crossovers, like a student could be in multiple clubs, but so if you want to see how many students are in clubs.
So that, I would have to do some work on that question.
All right.
Yeah, I think we
I don't
looked
know
at
the answer
it
to that.
a
40%?
while ago when we were working on our scorecard, and I think we had a number, and it took a lot of
Mhm.
effort to find, but so we wanted to know what percentage of students were either involved in a club or a sport, just that whole,
Mhm.
to your point, making that connection,
Mhm.
because we know how important that is, not just with other students, but definitely with adults.
Yes.
But it was hard to get, but it was a pretty cool number. Even
Mhm.
before we had all of these students, I think we had like 60% of students that were involved in something
Something.
beyond not just going to class, but beyond,
Mhm.
being a high school student. So, yeah. it's
And
pretty
I would
cool number.
assume that whatever the number of students who are buying ASB cards would be pretty similar to
Yeah.
that number.
Yeah, because
um,
most don't buy it just to buy it.
Yep.
Right, yeah.
Unless they want into the games.
Unless they went into the games for free, yeah.
That too.
All right, I will look into that number.
It
What
took a
percentage?
lot of time, so
Oh, I
don't,
know,
if,
yes.
just remember it being
Well,
like,
merging
oh,
of
yes.
data and comparing, yes, yes, I understand. So I also want to highlight band and choir and drama, so the fine arts. Every year they do an intensive retreat, which is pretty amazing, where they get to go work with some high-level clinicians, and they go work on their sound and their technique, as well as team building within each of the groups. I know they always come back super refreshed and energized for what they're doing. And then I just want to highlight Pet Band. They come out every home game aside from one conflict, and then they also even came out for senior night for girls soccer. So they are also kind of unsung heroes, because let me tell you, the one game that they weren't at the football game, they fill the stadium with just so much joy and excitement, and we certainly love having them there. And then the fall play went really well. The Julius Caesar takeoff, they had quite a few number of kids. I think there was about 50 to 60 kids that were involved with that play production, and now they're getting ready for their Drama Fest in December. And then in their spring play, there's about 100 kids that participate with that play that will come. So that's kind of their big event of the year. So this year being my first year, there's a lot to tackle, and there was a lot just as I came in. I really am looking at this year for my purpose. The students are at the top in what I'm working with, and then obviously the parent-community connection, and then the coaches and advisors. So there's a lot of people that I got to interact with, a lot of people that need to know that I care about them, that I'm supporting them. And so kind of the key things that I'm working on for this year are building relationships with students and with coaches and with the community, being present, visible, accessible. Like I want to be out at practices, out at games, out at JV games, out at the tennis match. I mean, I want to be accessible to the students and the community and our coaches. And then in the meantime, while I'm doing that, I'm working on developing frameworks and processes for efficiency. Okay, so this is a big beast dealing with a 4A, very highly competitive high school with all these clubs and activities. And so building systems that help streamline things and make things more efficient is going to just help things go smooth, but then also it just sets a great framework to be able to do better and do more and keep growing. So it's exciting, and I have to tell myself to slow down, and sometimes Deb Hay tells me to slow down because I can just, there's so many things that I want to do, but it's like, okay, I need to slow down so I can get this first, and then each year we'll be building, but it's very exciting. Okay, so one thing that I've done, so I'll just speak on each of the components. So in supporting the coaches and advisors this year, I spent quite a bit of my summer working on a coach's playbook. So this thing is an internal system for our coaches. So previously it would be, you know, if you, whatever the information is, you'd have to go to this website and go down to this tab and go over here and go over there and all that kind of stuff. And so I really wanted a one-stop shop for our coaches. So I created this playbook, and it's not interactive for you guys because this is, like I said, it's internal, but I at least wanted to show you. It's just information that they can find. All the things that they would need as a coach is found here. And it's a living document, so as things come up or they're asking for information that isn't on here, I can add to it. I have specific information for head coaches on what they're supposed to do, what's required, all that sort of stuff. So that's been really helpful, and you know, the feedback from coaches has been great, just being able to support them in that way. And then internally for Mount Si High School, I've been working with Michelle Cheney for field trips. So one thing that I oversee is the field trip process and approval and everything like that. And so we created this one pager that again is similar to the coach's playbook, but this is just a one pager. It was somewhere. Oh man, okay. It was hyperlinked. I'll just get it bigger for now. So each of the blue bolded sections are hyperlinked to something. So it's either a form or an email or address, and it just kind of guides. Previously, there was a packet of probably 7 or 8 pages that the advisor, teacher, or coach would have to fill out, and all these things. And so I just condensed it to a one page, and we're shifting to digital. So since we have to keep all the documents for 7 years by law, we're trying to digitize everything, so we're not having packets of these papers just stashed away for 7 years. So just trying to, again, streamline and make it more simple for people and for the staff members and our advisors. And then another thing for the coaches and advisors, just kind of what I was saying about presence and accessibility, increased communication. I started a coaches event kickoff in the summer in August, just to build relationship. We don't really have a lot of, in my experience as a coach, we had really great programs, but they were all kind of little islands. And so I'm trying to bring cohesion within the coaches and within the athletes and the teams. And that's intentional. Like, you have to intentionally make the time and set up dinners and that sort of thing. And so my goal is to have 3 events every year for the coaches to come together. So we had one, planning on having one in the winter and then the spring. For parents and community, I'll speak to this in a second. I think the biggest thing right now is just being responsive to parents and responsive to questions and things out in the community. People like to know that they're being heard, whether it's a question or a concern. And so I've been working really hard trying to respond just to parents in the grocery store or through email or from word of mouth and that sort of thing. And, you know, people need to know that you care and that you're willing to listen. And so that's just kind of what I've been trying to do on that end. And then in addition to our field trips, making it more simple, we're gonna work on shifting over to final forms for our field trips as well. Okay, so this will make it user-friendly. Parents can do all their signing, all their permission slips, update medical information, anything that a student is going to need to be able to go on a field trip or participate in something will be through final forms. We already do it for athletics, so it will just help internally as well, kind of streamline all of our communication between the nurses and athletic activity department, and then buses and finance. It'll just kind of help keep everything together. And there's some pretty neat features, the multi-language support. You can call 911 with an emergency or an emergency contact, which I had to do that at a cross-country meet. This year we had a student that had a crisis. And our athletic trainer called 911, and I was able to pull up Final Forms, pull up the student card, and click a button and call her mom, just right there. And I didn't have to go searching through papers. I didn't have to go get the backpack with the binder. I could just pull up my phone, and it was right there. And so that the convenience and the ease for parents to be able to know that you can quickly contact them if there's an emergency, I think that's priceless. It's really great. All right, now for students, I'm also soliciting surveys from them at the end of every season. So I want to know what their experience has been like here at Mount Si High School. Were they provided what they need? Did they feel like they developed as an athlete? Were they challenged and did they grow? All those sort of things. To come, we are lacking some recognition in our building, banners, whatever, all the things. And so what I would like to do is have a committee involving students and other stakeholders to figure out how do we want to display historical achievements, things that we're doing now, and then think for the future. Like, what do we want it to look like? So that's something in the future to start this year. And then I also want to do a mission and vision for athletics and activities. Like, that's a big void that we're missing. We want people to feel like they belong, but we're not really driving anywhere. And so I want to get a committee and have students be a part of that as well. And then in progress, I have, similar to the coach's playbook, I've begun a club activity playbook for advisors. I just haven't quite gotten to it yet.
And then Jordan, you
Yes.
you also led the development of a new refreshed, what do we call it?
Uniform.
No,
Oh.
no, that's another question. But it's the handbook, student handbook, student athletic handbook. Sorry.
Yes, so
Should have
I was a
written it.
part of the committee when I was not in this position last year as a coach.
Yep.
Yes, so I was involved with that with another coach, the former AD, and then Tammy and a few students. Yeah, so yes. So it's good to kind of have a cyclical update for anything like that anyways. And I think it had been probably 3 or 4 years since anybody had eyes on
Longer
that.
than that.
Or longer.
Yeah,
Could've
it
been
was probably longer than that.
Yeah. So that was good. It's
Yeah.
probably something for sure every 2 years, if not every year, at least kind of get eyes on it, just to see if we need to make any updates.
In my, I guess, a suggestion or a recommendation from a parent and having 2 students be in athletics since, well, forever, is now that we've moved to clicking, like, yes, I've read it. Yes, I've read it. No one really reads it. I mean, yes,
Oh,
they
I know
do. They
that.
are,
I
but
do know that, yes.
so I'm wondering, particularly with the refresh, if there's some way, and I know that if we send it out to the students, they're not going to go through every single page, but I'm wondering if there's some way that we can share some of those highlighted
Mhm.
areas that either have changed or some of those really important bullets, just like a high
Yeah.
level, this is your responsibility as a student athlete.
Mhm.
I don't know. I just know from as a parent, I'm guilty of it. I mean,
Yeah.
in some cases, that not going through it all, and I know a lot of other parents as well. And I don't know if when you guys go to your student handbook, if you read every single page before you click the button. So, yes, of course. So I don't know if there's like a, executive summary,
Yes.
keynote, just like a few
Uh-huh.
bullets, especially if there's something different from what we had before when we had a paper copy that we did have to sign,
Right.
which I feel like, I don't know.
Even that one doesn't mean that you read it. You'll
But I
sign
at least had it and kind of like flipped through the pages.
Yes.
So that's a good suggestion. My mind's already reeling on what we can do to make that a better. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Well, I noticed that like this year there's like questions that they like asked us on the student handbook to like make sure that we read like the handbook, and I thought that was good because a lot of kids like actually had to go through and like at least look at some of the sections. There's like 3 or 4 questions I think like on the student handbook on just like how to like analyze it or something.
Answer.
Was that consistent? Because I heard nothing about that.
Maybe on
And
the
I
student
think-
side.
Yeah.
It's realistic. I mean, if you just look at what it is and people being people, and I think it's realistic to just assume people are not going to read that whole thing every year. That's not going to happen. So highlighting the things that have changed and then having it really easily available so people can reference it and reminding people they can reference it. I think
Mhm.
that's way more effective than saying, read all that.
Yeah, and I
Because
think,
it's just not.
I mean, it
a
is
thing.
available, and I think it's because of how important and the
Mm-hmm.
repercussions of not following the handbook,
Mhm.
I think that it has to be as detailed as we've got it, unfortunately. But yeah, just, you already think about, but even like an outline or a couple highlighted areas, like, hey, watch,
Yeah.
FYI, you've agreed to this, and these are some of those big points, then I think it's all good. But
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for helping get that done.
Yes, yes, of course. Okay, so I've come to the end of what I have. Do you guys have any questions? Additional questions?
No, I don't have any question. I will have to say that this is really comprehensive, and the progress and the organization is phenomenal, and your goals are really clear, and so I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep, I love the handbook idea, just have everything all in one. I'm hoping, I have to assume the coaches are very thankful for that. So I have you may not be able to answer this question, but
Okay.
I've had so many conflicting and confusing descriptions as to what's happening with the uniforms, and I know that this is so tedious, and if we want to talk later, we can. But I heard one thing from for some reason, I'm the booster club, like whisperer, but from the booster clubs and from the students, and then from at least one coach that was confused as to what are we buying? Can they use their old Adidas uniforms that some of them are pretty darn new? Like, do we have any high-level guidance as to what we got ourselves into with
Yes.
our new company?
That's good, yes. Good question. Good. So we actually, our last so the first Wildcat Booster meeting, it was, there were a lot of questions. So this last one that we had, our BSN reps actually came out
Oh, good.
and kind of explained everything. So, and I've been telling coaches and our advisors that this is new for all of us. So it's going to be wonky. It's going to be kind of clunky. But the short of it is that we're transitioning to Nike. So
Okay.
all the uniforms that are in other brands, they can stay in those brands until it becomes their cycle for a uniform.
Awesome.
And so there's a lot of grace for that. And the BSN understands we don't have, $100,000 to go swap out every uniform to Nike. So there's an understanding for that. And so that helps. We're like this close for a secondary logo. And once that's finished, and as well as an academic logo. So once that is finished, what we'll do is we'll have a little booklet, a branding booklet that will include our current logo, the secondary one, and academic one, that will have all the colors, all the options, all the things that coaches, clubs, teachers, that they can do to build a team store or uniforms, and it kind of creates guidelines, because right now we have all these different, you just see it all out in the community, right? There's all these different ways that you see Mount Si things.
Yep.
And so we're trying to create unity in capturing all that together. So that should be coming soon.
Awesome.
All of our booster club, they all have contacts with Kyle, which is really helpful. He's quick to answer, and I'm always available as well. Did I answer some of your questions?
Yes.
Do you have more that I didn't
The other
answer?
question I have is, what is the plan for us as a district purchasing? Is it, we're going to be purchasing, say, all of the varsity different uniforms, and then they filter down? That's another question that I've got where I'm at. I don't know. But
So when again, I came into this inheriting a new deal and uniform rotation, this kind of stuff. And so the initial uniform rotation had incorrect numbers.
got it.
So by like 20% off, okay, in the other direction.
Yep.
So I got accurate numbers, and I was actually worked with Andrea and Ryan and Deb of just kind of talking out what that would look like. And so I updated the 3-year, and it's significantly higher. And then we proposed looking at a 4-year as well. And so we're kind of talking through what's going to be realistic, right? Because if we have a varsity that starts and is on a 4-year, right? But if it goes to JV and then C, and then, it's going to be 12 years before, it's kind of a long cycle. So the hope is that once it's confirmed on what the cycle is, that the district will either say, yes, we can pay this amount, and then boosters will have to supplement the difference. We haven't really gotten into the nitty gritty if it's just varsity, because football, there could be 60 varsity or 30 varsity, and then cross country there's only 7 or 9, you know, so it might just be a percentage, but I don't have a firm answer on that.
Awesome. So it's all TBD.
Yes.
Just something that we consistently get questions about is making sure that what we are doing is equitable across the
Yes.
sports. And so I'm sure once we start getting closer and it's equitable, and right now it's really based on how much money their boosters have. I mean,
Yes.
honestly, and that's,
Yeah.
is it equitable? I don't know. I mean, because it's, but
Yeah.
anyway, so I know that you guys will take that into consideration, but if we can
Yes.
get just like and none of us will go in the books and be super ticky-tacky about it, but if we can get a heads up on what, even if you've got a couple options, that will help us
Yeah.
just from
Well, and
the
all the
grocery store
rotations
conversation.
will go
So,
together.
yeah.
So like
Yeah.
boys and girls basketball both
Yep.
got new uniforms this year.
Yep.
Okay. And then anytime we have combined sports or like sports, they'll always get the same uniform. Like they'll be on
Yep.
the rotation together. So
Yep.
those ways we can make it equitable across the board. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very good.
Any other questions?
I think just to clarify, just if you don't know, this is the first time, at least in my experience with this, is the district is covering
Yep.
some of those uniform fees. So it's always been boosters prior to that. So
Well, a long time ago when I was in high school, the school paid for it, but
It was the
yes,
same
but
one.
it's
It was
new,
probably like
yeah,
5
so
years
all
old.
this
Yeah.
is new for all
Yeah.
all the people involved. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's all new. Awesome. Thank you.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say I couldn't be happier, Jordan, that you're in this role. And I have 2 kids that are in fall sports, and I see you everywhere. You are very accessible, and I just so appreciate how students are at the top of your pyramid. And I think we can all see that in some of the changes and some of the rollouts that you're doing. And even just with our coaches this past fall, I just felt like everybody felt better knowing just everything being more clear. So I'm just so grateful that you're there.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Similarly, I have heard nothing but people be thrilled that you're in this seat, and everything you do shows me why that's true. And I just appreciate you working so hard to make it work for all of the stakeholders, and which just makes it possible for more people to participate and more people to be involved. So I thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
thank you, Jordan. All right, we will, at our last board meeting, we have this principal from Snoqualmie Elementary School that had such important information to share that we thought we'd give him his own slot today. So I'll invite John Norberg up, principal of Snoqualmie Elementary School, to share his school improvement plan.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me. I know I was not here the other week, and so I really appreciate the opportunity to jump in here tonight. I know you heard from 5 other really awesome elementary schools and some of their plans, and I'm excited to share, what we're doing at FCS. Let's see, is this the? Oh, thank you. And I think it's like 82. We're a little further down on the slide deck.
86. I know. We don't want to go through all like 160 of them.
We already went through
It
them,
was a
right?
long night.
So don't worry.
I think it was 84 is when it starts.
Go through all 124 again.
Start from slide 1.
You're
Well,
planning
I will
on
just
it,
start out by saying, I know you guys have had a chance to kind of preview some of this and look at the information in advance, and so of course I'll just be touching on some of the data and the different slides and some of the information we have for you here. Maybe I'm doing this wrong. Am I advancing the slides here? Sorry.
You are.
Am I? Okay. Sorry, I just want to be sure
There
I
we
was. That was me. So So the data that we'll be sharing, as you guys know, SES I think of as really kind of a unique environment of educators and learners, being that we've got things like T2K in our developmental preschool and our gifted program. And so that data is reflective of our K-5 students encompassing our gifted students as well. And I think we as a staff have always tried to look through a lens that kind of looks at all different student groupings and then try to make a plan that we think is cohesive, that we as a building can kind of come around and develop plans that are going to address the needs of all students, knowing that there's some additional planning and PD that gets into place for some of those pockets. So interesting enough, some of it's a little bit reflective there in the data, but you can see starting with our ELA information, there's some areas of strength that we've gotten. Clearly a dip there in our 5th grade numbers. But when we look here at our cohort trends, we're still moving in the right direction, but maybe not quite as much as one might like, with that being above 80% proficiency, perhaps trying to move that a little further along. When we look at this information on our student growth data, to me, I think this almost kind of gets to that teacher heart. In essence, we have numbers that are solidly over 80% when you look at typical and high growth, but when you're an educator or a parent, it's that group of low performing students, that low growth pocket. And I think some of the PD and things that we're doing throughout the school year is trying to move the needle for those kids and trying to shift those numbers. And so we'd like to see obviously a decline in some of that. And so some of the obvious strengths that we see are that 85% of students in 3rd grade meeting standard in ELA, same thing in 4th grade, but some of those glaring needs being that ML population with a large decrease in those kids meeting proficiency. Our special ed students rose a little bit, but we think that's probably a little too flat and that we need to do a little better support in that area as well. And then we've also got some preschool information in there, so you can see 82% of preschool students are emerging towards kindergarten readiness as it pertains to literacy, which is a great number. But on the other side, if the measures by age standards, so on the right-hand side is going to be as it compares to the 3 to 4-year-old, and we know that about 2/3 of that population are already currently being served on an IEP. And so they've got some things they're trying to do to address that in terms of professional development and working towards supporting those students as they get prepared to enter into our kindergarten system. We've set some pretty good goals here. I think the one that we're going to be paying attention to is that Acadians piece that's rolled out over the last couple of years and trying to figure how we're going to meet the needs of those students. I think in terms of getting there, we've got some work to do, and I think we have a really strong teacher staff, and so I'm fairly confident that we're gonna, at the end of the year, we're gonna make some good growth in our ELA, and we've got some plans to do that. And what I like about some of these plans, and you probably heard some similar things from our other elementary schools. And that when we developed these SIP plans, it was kind of a blank slate. We all kind of came back together recognizing there were some similar needs in our buildings. And so that small group instruction kind of became a reoccurring thing, and that was something our building determined as well. And so that first one, that focus groups for improvement, we just wrapped up our first 6-week cycle. And so we're gonna be visiting that at a staff meeting in terms of some of the outcomes and learnings that we had from that. And then starting that again, we're gonna go ahead and administer the STAR assessment. It's not the district window for that, but we're gonna do it in advance of so that we can kind of continue that cycle. And so it kind of nests into tier 2 strategies, implemented small group instruction, and then identifying students who really have a need for some of that.
I have a question.
Yeah, Renee.
In the top one, identify focus groups for improvement, targeted services, is what I'm assuming you're saying.
Yes.
Low growth and low achievement. Do you mean low growth or low achievement?
Well, so
or do you mean and?
And it's a yes and, yeah. So
Okay.
we're going to do that for math and reading, and we've broken it off, just having them choose one or the other this first cycle. But if you think of like a 4-quadrant box,
Right.
and so it's those kids probably in that, I think, well, lower left-hand box where it's that low growth, low achievement.
And is that how you're targeting the low growth group that was shown in the chart a couple of slides ago?
That's going to be determined. That I think those kids are typically encompassed in that one. But this is more our anecdotal every 6 week kind of teacher-driven instruction.
Okay, thank you.
Similarly, when it comes to math, when we talk about building some of these goals and when you work together on these things, it's probably no different than what you heard from some of the other teachers, or excuse me, some of the other schools, but you're trying to move the needle for a broad group of kids. And when we just recently dove down into some of the data, Valerie Lee and I were talking about our next staff meeting. If you look at some of those level 2 kids on there, 6% in 4th grade or 4% in 3rd grade, you're really getting a little bit granular, and that's like, it kind of takes some of the pressure off. It's like, that's like 4 kids. Like if you could move 4 kids, you might get a 3% bump. And so I think that also takes the pressure off of a teacher. We want all kids to grow, but if we're really just looking at these numbers, maybe that's where we can kind of bite off a good chunk. So again, that cohort data shows a little dip there in 5th grade. And again, this tracks similarly with that ELA growth. And I don't know if that's math these days has a lot of reading components to it. And so it may have some sort of variation that, you can't do one without the other. But again, those numbers track similarly. And so to get after some of this math information, we took the strategic plan back to staff, and that algebra readiness, that conversation about what does that mean to a kindergarten teacher when we're talking about that. So as a staff, we collectively decided that, there's some areas that we can work on in terms of, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, sorry about that. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but focusing on the foundational math skills. How can we get kids algebra ready here for our middle school and our high school? And that's going to be around foundational math skills. How do we work on some of that? Maybe emphasis on different units that we're working on. Again, those focus, small groups, things of that nature. I'm going to bump back here just real quick, make sure I didn't miss anything. No different than our ELA. Again, an area of opportunity in our ML students. Same thing, we saw a dip in our special ed students. And then I know our preschool staff, it was that math equivalence for their age group, that math readiness. So really starting at a young age and focusing on that component for our kids as they move into kindergarten on through 5th grade. We've got this year, one I will point out is that we didn't have any 5th graders at the beginning of the year qualify for our WIN Reading and Math program, which is a real celebration. And so that allows our WIN Math person to help a broader group of students and get kind of creative. And of course, we'll continue to monitor that. And there could be some kids that get pulled in, but I think that shows that maybe some of the things we were doing last year were effective for those 5th graders this year. Part of this, looking at 3rd grade there, our end of year STAR information, we're already kind of tracking some of that. And so we're hoping that those frequent dips and monitoring will help us figure out where we're heading, course correct if need be throughout the course of the year. So we've set, there's a little bit more work to do in there, some not as much. But again, I think through some of these implementation steps, as I mentioned, the algebra readiness piece that we think we have a big role in at the elementary age, and then enhanced targeted small group instruction. That last one is that clear communication piece, and it's kind of timely in that we've got conferences coming up. We know that this education is a partnership, and so I think parents, particularly in math, feel like they play a role in that. And so making sure we're actively communicating with parents, sending home those assessments so that they can play a role at home too. And that 3rd leg of that 3-legged stool, we can't access any of this if kids aren't feeling like they can be ready to be at school. And so when we looked at the strategic plan, we felt that we could leverage our new tool in Sabres. And I think the one that teachers felt like they had the most impact on was that academic behavior. And so we felt this would be a goal that could not only impact our scores, but teachers felt a direct correlation in the classroom. And so some of the ways that getting after that, again, with conferences coming up, we're going to have that first, kind of formal touch with parents. Hopefully we're doing that along the way to support some of that. And then we started back in September, that calibration piece. It's really important, I think, for kids to have a common understanding when they are at, SES, what behavior looks like from classroom to classroom is consistent, right? There's no wonder or worry around that. So we've had some good, really robust conversations about that before we started administering our Sabres, and we'll be doing that again throughout the course of the year. And so I think the last piece there kind of dovetails our preschools got PD on those pretty much most Fridays. It feels like they're really working hard, and so they're working on that early childhood pyramid model. So
What is our Sabres percent now? Do we have one now? What's our improvement, or do we not know yet?
I think the window just closed maybe last week, so we'll all start to take a look at our Sabres data.
So if we're above 83%, are you going to bump that up?
Yes, that's.
And can I, was that your, I didn't want to interrupt if you had.
No, I'm done.
Yeah, I was curious, just so that I know I'm thinking of it the right way, what falls under academic behaviors?
Good question. Let's see, let me go back to that. So academics, that low risk indicates that the learner is on track to meet grade level standards for social emotional behaviors. There's a little bit of a laundry list that I don't have in front of me, I apologize, but that kind of outlines so the teacher understands and the student, those that are actually taking it, understand what academic behaviors are.
Okay.
Things like resilience and also things that connect to executive functioning. It's
Okay.
all of those pieces.
Okay.
I can send you, we have the PDF from Sabres that breaks down for each of those elements, what the components are.
I would love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And we can share some of that data if you guys are interested, since that window just closed.
Very cool.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So I think we've got some plans in place that I touched on briefly to get to the heart of some of this. Some things that don't show up in data and things that necessarily don't show up in some of the implementation steps that I think are important to point out. I had mentioned WIN earlier. It's like looking at that exit data. Where are these kids going? Are they getting referred to special ed, or are they exiting out and performing at grade level in their classroom? Paying attention to our MTSS team. That's a weekly group of people who are getting together to speak about individual students, but then tracking and seeing, are those interventions working? Are we seeing similarities in student deficiencies in our classrooms? And so that might feel a little bit more anecdotal, but that's kind of an ongoing piece in this puzzle that I think is really important to point out. And there's some really good work being done that ties a lot of different educators together to row in the same direction. So, any questions from you guys?
Yeah, a couple of questions, two parts. One is, I do see that second, third grade, there is a dip, and then we catch up the students in the fourth and fifth. So are there any trends that you see over the years? That is there a trend of, maybe after second grade, third grade, there is a jump up in, academic requirements. That's why we are showing a decline.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be nice to understand that, to see where do we put more pressure, emphasis on that trend being more normalized, rather than we are going through a dip and then we are putting all the resources and then we are it's a reactive versus a
Jumping
proactive.
to it, yeah.
Proactive mechanism. The second part is, there is no answer to this one. I'm just asking you to look into it. There is a look into it, because data is what is going to dictate to actions. The second thing is the transition between elementary, middle, and high school. We have seen dips.
Mhm.
So we need to collaborate between all the three systems, elementary, middle, and see what kind of enhancements or support or adjustments we need to think about so that we are again normalizing it rather than reacting to it. Oh my God,
Yeah, I agree. And one thing that I can speak to actually, I've something we talked about this year and did last year. So with that last day of school where there were no students, we as a elementary team used part of that time to do the handoff. You just had a kindergarten teacher do 180 days work with a student, and really solved a lot of different riddles and put a lot of legwork into that, and made sure that there was a really clean handoff to that first grade teacher or that team at that point anyway, so that you weren't spending the first 20 days of school trying to fight the same battle that they did. So we're trying to do some things to also, let's honor the work that was done before us, right? And then even just this year, Megan, Josh, and I have had multiple conversations just about different students and whether it's academics or something else. And so that MTSS work that I'm talking about that we do, why aren't we figuring out a formalized process to pass that on to the middle school so that they can take that and see what's been tried and what's worked and what hasn't, and apply it. So that's just a simple thing I think we could initiate currently.
Yeah, I mean, anecdotally, I feel like just feedback from parents has been really good, better than in previous years from that transition from elementary to middle. Middle to high, I haven't heard quite as much because that's just a different animal when you're coming to this high school from. But anecdotally, I've heard nothing but it's like wrapped arms around making sure that it was an individual child that they were looking at, not one. But secondly, the new growth goals, those track individual students, right, throughout. I mean, so if they start in kindergarten, we will track them all the way until they graduate. So it's, again, one of those really positive things that the state has actually moved forward that gives us really good data. So that's a very good point, though. But yeah, again, anecdotal, I don't have any data, but from conversations with parents and students, I feel like over the last few years, it's been awesome.
Yeah, and I think it's, even from an administrator standpoint, understanding exactly what it is, but knowing what's going on in between that step, and so that we can continue to have those conversations with families and put some of them at ease. And we know it's going to be okay, but we want to make sure they do too.
One of the things on the growth through the state, it doesn't start till 4th grade.
Okay.
Because it's based on SBA, so you have to
Got
have
it.
2 years of data. So
Got
we do have growth for students from 4th grade
All the way through.
forward. Yes.
Got it.
And one of the things, just real quick, Rob, to address the drop, like say between 2nd, 3rd, there's a couple of things that go into account. One is the test is different. So we've gone from Acadians to STAR, which although they're all looking at that holistic picture, Acadians is one-on-one with an adult. It's not a computer test where they're taking it on their own, so you can measure if they're rushing or not. And it's also a lot more diagnostic, where STAR's on the computer. So you see some differences there. We can chat more through what we're seeing in those trends, but we pay a lot of attention, working with Gabby and our team on breaking down the data to see if it's overall comprehension or something bigger. So it is something we're looking at, but I just wanted to clarify that growth piece and where you're seeing it.
Got it.
Anything else? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
All right, we started with high school improvement plans, and then thank you, Mr. Norberg, for wrapping up elementary for us tonight. And so the last and final group is our middle school team. And as I am about to just hand the mic over, I want to say what a wonderfully collaborative group of principals we have in this group. As you know, I'm used to being in a leadership role with multiple high schools, and bringing them together is a challenge because they're big administrative teams. So having these 3 pairs of principals and assistant principals or 3 middle schools as such a collaborative group, they work together so well, and they're checking with each other on all their professional development, their goals, what's working well in your school, how do I borrow and steal that. So I'm excited for you to hear from them tonight about all that collaborative work. So I'm going to hand it over to Michelle, who's going to, Megan's going to kick us off, all right?
We're
We're so collaborative, we forget who everyone is. Thank you. Thanks, Andrea, for the nice intro, and thanks for having us. We're really excited to present our school improvement plans. We have been known to talk a lot, and we have a lot of really fun things to share, so hopefully we'll keep this on point. Like just when you guys are talking about the transition, we weren't even planning on talking about that, but there's so many cool things we're doing. Like Web was in person for the first time since before COVID, and the buses showed up, and the kids got their unique experiences. There's just so many cool things that we're doing, so we will try our best to stay focused and stick to the slides. Jude, you can kind of give me like if we're bird walking, just give me like a little indicator. But Megan's going to talk about our connection to the strategic plan.
Thanks, Jeff. Maybe I won't.
That's right on keypad.
I'll have to do this.
Arrow keys.
Oops. Okay, I'll learn for the next time. Sorry. So thank you again for this new strategic plan that we have in a 5-year plan is really amazing because as you all know, and we all know here that it takes a while to really analyze your data, your systems, and then really develop a solid plan to execute change. And so 5 years is really amazing for us to do just that and also tie the work with our SIP plans, which you'll see some of our connections as we talk tonight, but some of these you might not hear, but they're also embedded in the work that we're doing or in the SIP plan if you were to read it, or looking at our professional development. So the MTSS overview and that new law that's coming into place. So there's a lot of work that'll be happening this year, whether it's directly tied to those goals, the professional development, some of our systems, things like that as we move on throughout the year. Obviously our Tier 1 strategies, both academic, social, emotional, behavioral, all those best practice Tier 1 strategies, which again are kind of feeding into that MTSS system. Universal design, which I know you've heard from other schools, it's out there, the best practices. So you'll hear that and see that in our SIP plans. Evidence-based grading, which again we're going to dip into and start working on. You'll hear about that, see it, things like that. And then lastly, all of us have a goal of our culture and well-being, and then the belonging here. So you'll see some of those ties from the strategic plan to our SIP plans, whether you hear about it tonight or if you were to dive into our SIP plans or come on over to our schools. Hopefully you see it there too. I'm not going to touch the screen, Michelle. Good luck. Okay.
Arrow keys.
Wait, am I? Oh, dang. No?
There.
Woo, all right. Teamwork makes the dream work. Okay, so you have reviewed our data. I know you've seen it, so I'm not going to spend any time going through it. I would say this is, we've been looking at our target data for years, and last year the heavy lift was in math. We had a brand new math curriculum, and so a lot of focus as administrators on math. Math walkthrough tool. We met with our math coach every couple of weeks. He came to our buildings, we walked through with him, we shared that feedback with teachers, so a lot of work around math. What we know is that work is still, we're staying the course, and you'll see some of our target data later, but we're also know we need to address writing. So we've got to do both. ELA in general, but particularly writing. We met in June with our teams and we analyzed our data. We go to SMS quite frequently as a middle school team and Door PD. And on June 21st, we met and we looked at our target data from the SBA and we narrowed in on this year's targets. Some are the same you're going to see, and some new trends came out. For CKMS, for example, we did quite well in compare and contrast and in the area of vocabulary. So we thought, okay, it's time we're going to be doing that in ELA and across the board in science and social studies, but we really need to focus on writing. So we have been monitoring our targets and continue. And today you're going to hear from us about what our target areas are, how we're going to progress monitor, and then what PD we're going to do with our staff. Because we have similar target data, it changes a little bit. Like you might see Megan, one thing popped up for her or Jeff or I, but in general, the trends are very similar. And so by the end of this presentation, we're gonna each take a little chunk of and we decided I'll share this, Jeff will share this, and Megan, and then you'll see the big picture. Because I think the last thing you want to do is sit and hear the same presentation 3 times. I know you're really busy. And then along the way, if you want to ask us questions, each principal, or you want to wait till the end, you guys will just tell us how that works. So again, overall, I would just say one thing about Chief Canum's data. We did see a nice bump in math and ELA for 6th grade. So that is one of the things with the transition, and I was just bird walking with these guys, and I said, you know, it'd be really great to sit with the elementary principals of our feeder schools, and because you want to hear from them, like what, you know, look at the scores, and really be able to analyze those and then pick up and have a smoother transition. We look at them when they come in, but it's you know, it's kind of disconnected from you in some ways, so that would be neat if we could put something together. So for literacy, again, we have very similar target data, and coming out of the SBA, similar ways we're measuring growth and PD. I'm just going to touch really quickly on close reading strategies. That is one thing that we know that kids really need work around, and particularly we were narrowing in on this for inference, in the area of kids being able to infer. And so we, this year, are working with our literacy coaches, and it's in our PD plan to do close reading strategies, professional development. I believe it's maybe in January now. Our plan, we have a similar PD plan, and we have the coaches, we share them. And so it's really nice, we meet with them quite frequently to talk about our PD. So close reading strategies is one thing that Chief Canum, well, we're all working on, I'm just gonna highlight that. You know, kids need to be able to analyze text for different purposes, and they need to be able to have those skills, and that is something that we have to explicitly teach, and is helpful for all content areas. So that is something that I wanted to highlight, and we do work closely with the coaches to put that PD together, and we do share the PD a lot. We work closely together.
Well, and I just want to reiterate what Monica had already hit on, and we know as well, is that math isn't what it used to be.
Yes,
It's not a bunch of
agreed.
numbers or an equation that you need to solve. And I think we've continued to see the tie to ELA proficiency tied much closer now to math because of the way. And so SBA, when does it start? All the way in elementary school that they need to read the problem. So
And that was,
it's
you know,
such
that
a
is-
different tie than it used to be. So
Right, and that's, you know, was a concern and continues to be for our students who are multi-language learners and who have an IEP and, you know, reading and writing goals. That is a challenge. So how do we build that in for students? Yes, they're closely tied. So we also know that in ELA, they're going to talk about this, but there are 3 types of writing. Writing surface is an area of concern, and so you're going to see how we're building in professional development in the area of writing. So in math, I wanted to highlight a couple of things. So again, our targets are very similar. How we're measuring it is very similar. One thing that Chief Canum is doing as a whole math department is incorporating the HMH growth measure tool. It's a built-in assessment in the program, and our teachers decided to do that 3 times a year in addition to the other measuring, the other assessments, because they would like to track kids' growth over time within the curriculum. So kids are doing some goal setting on those different standards, and then they're checking back in the middle of the year, looking and seeing how they're doing. So we are doing that as a whole math department. The other thing to know about math is that there are 4 claims in the area of math, and the state gives us data on 1 claim, concepts and procedures. That's 70% of the exam is on that. And so we're able to dig down and look at these targets based on that. But there are 3 other claims that we don't get data on. And if you look at our scores, it might look like, wow, that looks really good. And then when you dig a little deeper, you're like, wow, we definitely have some areas of growth in problem solving, communicating, reasoning, and modeling and data analysis. Now, what we know is that all the things we're doing, the plan of attack of doing an IAB, incorporating tools for teachers' injury tasks will help us in that area, but we will have that as a focus as well, because we saw our scores struggling in that area. And then you're gonna hear from Meg and Jeff on the other parts. And then cultural well-being and belonging. Chief Canum has chosen this year to really try to get a very, very strong foundation in our Tier 1 team, and what that means to the team and what that means to our staff. We've had a Tier 1 team for years, but it was definitely looser and it's focused. And so this year we did the PBS self-assessment survey. We set goals on, and this year our goal is to focus on behavior definitions and expectations. So as we do data, as we have kids take surveys and staff, then we are building in PD for staff around those goal areas and tracking that. We have structured our advisory a little different. Again, this is something that we talk about as principals, but we have thematic units every month with themes, and we have a structure. We did borrow the Check and Connect idea from the high school, well, SMS to the high school to Chief Canaan, and we're just launching that. So trying to have a better structure of both doing the counseling piece, but also the academic organization activities. We continue to build our leadership program. We have a leadership class that is helping us build community building activities. We have a Hawk TV program that is kind of spread the good word at our school. We have our Hawk Hours, which celebrate student and they get to be kids, have fun, have a little downtime and be social. They're so scheduled, so that's kind of fun. And we have a focus on tech-free lunches at our school. And trying to revive some multicultural pieces as well. So if you think about connectedness to school and well-being, we're trying to hit it from kind of different areas. And we are monitoring that by monthly surveys to students about how the activities went. Do they like them? What would they like to see? Our counselors all do a needs assessment survey at the beginning of the year, and we are monitoring that, and we'll do a post on that. We looked at our data, incoming data, and again, Swiss referrals, attendance, and grades are the way that we monitor this goal. So I don't know if there are questions for me, or you want me to keep chugging along to give it
I have a quick question, but it's probably for all of you. Because I know we are now looking like class by class,
Yes.
instructor by instructor, and so when we go back to some of the higher level data, we see some significant differences. Are we catering the PD to those teachers, to those staff in some cases, where it might be I'm not talking wildly different, and I know that most of this PD, all of it probably is good for all of our staff, but are we helping?
Yes, so I think a couple things we talked about is, first off, we are sharing the SGP data individually with these teachers. So we're having conversations with individual teachers so they can see their data as compared to their colleagues in the building and also district-wide. So that is something we're all doing. Tailoring the PD, it depends on the topic, but yes, like we are doing a lot of specific PD with our co-teachers in math, and that looks a little different maybe than another math teacher. And ELA co-teaching, at least our PD and support from Jessica Wells and special ed department. And yes, so it is tailored. Yes, okay.
And I think we're also, we're still, you'll hear about this a little bit later, but we're still doing those walkthroughs with our coaches. And so that's also where you can really tailor that feedback. So we'll see something that we also want to maybe get some input with the math lens from maybe our coach or whatnot. And then we can tailor that feedback as principals and evaluators with that teacher as well. So I think it's kind of twofold. It's that PD, yes. It's the analysis of the data, some specific feedback as a whole about the instructional next steps. But then when we're in the classrooms, we're using those walkthrough tools, we're with our coaches, and then the feedback and that work with the teachers, I think, is really where you're going to get the majority of your work.
Megan, does that tie to their growth goals as individual
Yep.
teachers?
Individual growth goals.
Do you want to talk about that?
No,
Okay.
just so you can mention growth goals and,
Yep.
I just had a question about the math data at CKMS.
Yes.
I think we kind of went by the data quickly, but
Yes.
if we look at the cohort slide, it looks like our current 8th graders have gone down 16% in the last 2 years in math.
Yes.
And I guess I'd like to hear specifically what we're doing to make sure they're ready for high school. I'm very concerned about that group of kids and knowing what it's like when they get here. I just like to have a higher comfort level that they're going to be ready.
Right. Yeah, definitely not a trend that is good. So a couple things. I think the focused IEPs are going to be very helpful because kids are getting a lot. Prior to COVID, we did focused IEPs at Chief Canaan, And now we're back, and I really appreciate it because it gives kids specific practice with the SBA testing format, and it gives teachers immediate feedback, and last week they debriefed that. But I think we're also looking at, interventions. So for example, we're piloting some interventions with small groups of kids who are struggling, and trying to get them ready for, not only passing 8th grade, but being algebra ready. So I also think the teachers feel like this year it's the second go around with HMH. So teachers being able to do small group instruction. So part of, and I don't want to speak to what they're going to say, but differentiation. So when the kids are getting ready for their PCs, they've done a check for understanding through HMH. They're pulling small groups. They're meeting with those kids, and that is one of the goals and the expectations that teachers are doing small groups.
Okay.
Now, not every teacher's going to be doing small groups all the time. I think there's a comfort level and there's some practice and getting comfortable, but that is the expectation. What we're moving towards is being able to catch kids earlier and remediate, so there's not those big holes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I think
And I would say too, the math, the walkthrough tool, and then individually meeting with teachers and saying how can we support you?
Yeah.
Joel is a great support, so getting Joel in to help coach if need be. So I think we've got all kinds of things going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say too, Chief Kim specifically, the population of that school over the past 2-3 years has changed, and the student need has changed with that. So Timber Ridge similarly has experienced some of that change with students with different needs that are now the staff at Chief Kingdom, well, district-wide. We need to understand their needs, provide professional development for our teachers for those types of specific needs, but Chief Kingdom specifically, and Timber Ridge as well, with a dynamic of that population change, which really did happen overnight, has directly impacted those schools specifically.
That cohort, it's a much different group of
Yes.
students than it was.
Right.
Yeah.
I would add, we're just gonna also, it's not unique to that particular cohort is, those red arrows being back to back from that 5 and 12% dip is alarming, but it still goes back to in our high school SIP conversation of what are we doing when students arrive in 9th grade and we're putting them in algebra and the data's showing they're not quite ready. That's gonna, just a huge plug for the math summit.
Math summit.
Yeah, that conversation is what do interventions look like when those students get to us? And because putting them, an algebra lab class is great coinciding with algebra 1. If they're still lacking the pre-algebra skills, that has to come before the algebra intervention. So that's going to be one of the main pieces of our conversation and looking at some of the trend data of some of those students and what math they took and how they accelerated and jumped around some of the pathways and missed chunks of math skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
With me too. There's always this poll about filling the gaps, filling the holes, filling the gaps. How much time do I spend? But gosh, we're moving ahead, and you've got to know linear equations, and so it is really a challenge. So always trying to figure out a better way because the kids come, if they come with huge holes and gaps, we know the math is so sequential, and they need to have that. But then the course is moving on, so it is a real challenge. But again, I think we got a collaborative team. It's really nice that the teachers get to meet together too. I mean, the math team is really cohesive with all 3 schools, and they get to learn from each other, and that's very good. I really appreciate that. So yeah, we know our targets, and we're working.
Oh no, the arrows have been, okay.
76 minus
Assistant principal right here, arrows. Okay.
But they're not. It's
So
fun.
as Josh is getting us there, okay, thank you. So here is our, again, very similar to what Michelle shared. You'll see very similar trends with both our ELA and our math as well, data up here. You will see that one of our highlights was that 6th grade group. We were from last year, that's with the 81%, but you'll also see our dips then with 7th and 8th grade. Talking with teachers, digging into the data, very similar to what Michelle said. We spent a lot of time focusing on that math, the new adoption, working with our teachers, and we didn't really spend a lot of time on writing in particular, and so that's where a lot of those dips you see, and that's where a lot of our work that I'll talk about in a little bit is taking place at all 3 schools. Again, kind of all over the board here a little bit, this is our cohort data where Now the 7th grade, our cohort data looks a little bit better, but we're down in our 6th and our 8th grade cohort data. So again, diving into what can we do, again, looking at the writing in particular. And there are some unique things to the grade levels, aspects that we are gonna focus on that are a little bit different. Like argumentative was seen a little bit. That was a target area that was low in 7th grade. So how can we address that with 7th graders? We aren't forgetting about it in 6th or 8th, but how can we really support that learning in the 7th grade where it's popped up as a low area? And then the SGP, again, we want to see that red go down. So that's really closely tied to the work that we're going to be doing this year. Math, again, we were really excited to see the bumps with the proficiency, but then, and our math teachers worked so hard, as you know. We were in their classrooms a lot. Joel Rath was amazing supporting all of us. So really hats off to the work that was done all around. Great scores that we saw here when we looked at the proficiency scores from last year, where you can still see the work that needs to be done as the cohort. And again, really in an implementation year, remember a lot of times you see scores dip. So for us to work really hard to see the bump with the proficiency was great. Do we still have work to do, as Michelle was explaining? Yes. So that's going to be year 2 of our focus here. So you'll see that's where, again, 7th grade, that cohort went up, but we did have a drop. 8th grade as well, which you can, that's where we dropped the most. So working with those teachers, particularly with 8th grade, drilling down what's going on. Some things that we did do a little bit differently with advisory in particular, and looking at our cohort data and our student data, is trying to strategically roster our advisory classes with their math teacher or their language arts teachers. So it's just another layer of support that they can have with those teachers as well. So that was kind of another thing that we wanted to do to layer in on top of the differentiation and the different strategies in PD that we'll be talking about. Again, we want to see that growth, the low growth go down and the high growth go up. So continuing on from Michelle's discussion, ours looks very similar. Like I said, some of our target areas are a little bit different with argumentative popping up. We see narrative pop up. I think all of us have narrative as well. And so how are we going to really look at that writing is structured writing. And I was really excited today because Josh and I and some of our team members here were popping around into classrooms, and we had done some structured writing PD because, again, the focus is on the writing and how the structured writing can really help all of your target areas here. And we had some structured writing PD on Friday, asking about those connections and transitions to the high school. We had high school teachers collaborate and actually help lead the breakout sessions with our middle school teachers. And so we had common language, we had consistent practice. We had all of our content teachers besides math received this instruction. And really it was looking at the breakdown of how do you write a chunk, which is a combination of a lot of different elements of your writing. And then how do you take that chunk and build it into a paragraph and so forth. And so that, those keys will support all of the literacy targets that are over on that left side of the screen. The cool thing also about structured writing, I'm really excited about this. The cool thing also about this is the follow-up. So great, we had this awesome PD session on Friday, cross-content. How can you apply some of these strategies to different areas? So now what? Well, our next building directed day, our teachers are bringing in they're selecting 3 different student examples. They're bringing that back. We're going to reconvene together as separate buildings. And now it's that collaborative look using a similar rubric that we all have. And we're going to look and analyze collaboratively at those writing samples. So now it's okay, what are the instructional next steps? How do I analyze this properly, whether I'm a science teacher, social studies teacher, health, etc. Another cool thing about structured writing today is walking into a language arts teacher who's been teaching language arts for years and hearing her say, you know, I learned this on Friday from our high school teachers, and then showing some of the different learnings that she had even with our teachers there. So starting some of that groundwork with, you know, the collaboration and then the consistency moving forward. So structured writing PD will continue throughout the year. UDL strategies you also see, we'll start embedding those, that learning and professional development, and also weave in some of our other target areas. So inference, which Jeff is going to talk about, just a little bit. That popped up as similar target areas in different grade levels in our schools. And so we'll weave in how can we appropriately address inference as well as just best practice UDL strategies that'll hit all sides of our learners on the learning spectrum. Math. So, go ahead. Again, following up with what Michelle said, looking at the various different targets in June, and then I'll talk about how we're the professional development and the growth that we're using the focused IABs. If you remember last year, we used a lot of our HMH assessments in HMH is our curriculum, so it's embedded in the curriculum to track our growth, and it's closely tied to our SBA, so we felt very comfortable with that. But this year we're taking a step further, and so what we did is the focused IAB is it's through the SBA platform. So it's another method of students practicing on the platform, first of all, getting used to what is it like to take that test on the same platform. So that's step one. But then step two, when you can look at those focused IABs, those are narrow tests that are aligned to your target areas. So you really have this, again, focused view of what those students are learning, and you can analyze exactly how they're learning when you're looking at that data. So we got together in June. Joel helped our teachers look at their own school data. So like 8th graders actually looked at the 7th grade data so that they could see their incoming students, and they took those targets and then looked at their 8th grade standards and that progression of learning, and then that helped them instructionally and then also just kind of plan going forward. The only challenge with that, 7th grade looked at 6th grade, but 6th grade didn't have the 5th grade in time, so they just had to base it on their current 6th grade data and just kind of go from there. So what does that look like now? Well, on Friday, while we were doing the really cool structured writing PD, Joel had our math teachers, and they were analyzing their first IAB results. So they were doing error analysis. They were in different groups based on grade level and content, looking at their student data, and then collaborating together to devise plans and instructional steps moving forward. How does reteach look like? How does acceleration look like? What do we want to do moving forward? So those focused IABs is that assessment of growth, but then it's also professional development where Joel can work with those teachers too and move forward. And then you'll see UDL also. Joel come in and help with the UDL and overlay those. Okay. Josh Young, assistant principal, going to talk about our third goal.
Having to follow Megan, that's always tough. All right, thanks everybody. So our culture of well-being and belonging, by June 2025, we want to ensure that 100% of middle school students engage in social emotional well-being and belonging. Tier 1 strategies and evidence-based classroom practices is measured by attendance data, SWIS data, student feedback and surveys, staff participation in PD sessions to improve our overall well-being and outcomes. Essentially, if you come to SMS, you want to feel welcome. And that's what we work through every single day. We're out and about in the mornings, talking to kids, getting the pulse, getting the feeling of what's going on, communicating with each other. We're out there at lunch, we're walking through classrooms constantly, getting feedback from our teachers. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that, but trying to be very proactive, preventative, and thoughtful about everything we do to hear what our students are going through and feeling, and incorporating some of those ideas into our school to make it a better experience for them. So some of the areas where we're looking to improve is just our overall school climate, and looking at our SWIS data, looking at our attendance data, as well as student surveys, staff surveys. ASB has really ramped up their surveying, both from the high school level and our own school-based ASB this year, which has been great, getting feedback on how can we improve school events. We just had our most popular dance in several years because the kids felt like they had more voice in the experience, and now we're planning on doing these things again going forward. We're also going to do kind of based on our tier 1, so we also have a tier 1 team that meets monthly. We're looking at all these kind of data, SWIS, attendance, tardy data, and then we're going to put out a student survey as well, kind of a little before the holidays. How are we feeling? What's going well? What can we do when you come back from school to help you kind of hit the ground running? So that's how we're using kind of those kind of datas. We're working to train all of our staffs repeatedly in like tier 1 classroom-based SEL strategies. So we do, how can we recognize our students in the classroom and school-wide? every week we do kind of our Eagle Buck poll at grade level lunches. So we have ASB leaders come up and they pull out names of kids. Kids get recognized, get a little prize in front of their peers. We make sure kids clap for each other and are kind and are nice, and nobody boos. It's great. Everybody feels good, and we take their picture. It's just another way on top of our quarterly recognition to just kind of generate some excitement and really recognize those kids are demonstrating great behaviors. So using student voice, I think the biggest aspect this year that we kind of hit on, it's not just getting the voice, but really implementing it. It's one thing to ask our kids how they feel or what their ideas are, but this year taking that extra step of really implementing it and making it theirs so they really have buy-in is really important. So obviously, it was mentioned earlier by John Norberg about kids need to feel good to learn. And in middle school, it's very interesting. You have sixth graders who are kind of children. You have people hitting puberty in seventh grade. You have young adults in eighth grade. So it's a very dynamic population in middle school. And so we're constantly using our feedback in our tier 1 meetings and also our tier 2 meetings. We're looking globally and then we're honing in on those individual students. Who needs a small group differentiated instruction with our counselors, mental health therapists, social workers, maybe admin at times, depending on our relationships with the kids. So we use all of that feedback to help create a more inclusive environment for our kids, help them connect with other students. We also go through and make sure that every adult has a connection with the kids, and we go through this repeatedly throughout the year, just highlighting rosters. Who have I talked to? What do I know? Or who do I know something about, to make sure we're not missing anybody. Because sometimes our introverts can kind of fly under the radar. We make sure we're hitting everyone. So as we hit professional development, we're going to hit our tier 1 instructional strategies. We've talked about UDL and how we can do that to support behaviors in academics. Our behavioral strategies and support, sessions on proactive classroom management, de-escalation techniques, strategies for fostering social emotional learning, creating a dynamic, preventative, and responsive atmosphere for kids. And then collaborative problem solving, looking at data with our staff, showing them Swiss data, showing them behavioral data, attendance data, showing them tardy data, and how we follow up with our kids. Kids that do exceed our little tardy protocols, we have reteach, so we do like beyond time plans, where kids will come in during advisory or during lunch, and we talk about their barriers, which is usually talking to my friends during passing period. And then we talk about how we can overcome that barrier, not talking as much. It's really effective, and it's kind of a nice way to build a relationship with the kids, and then we get them to class on time. And then we recognize them.
Can I ask a tiny question about
Please
that?
do.
I've heard a lot of conversations here and there, people expressing the appropriateness of some kind of social break beyond lunch in the middle school day so that they get that time to connect with friends. And also the often physical activity is kind of an extra recess that's in middle school, not just in elementary school. And I wonder if you guys have been talking about that.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that we have, so we do have advisory 4 days a week, and so that's an opportunity for students to do a check and connect with teachers and make up work. It's a chance to do their classwork, but also socialize with their peers in advisory. We have a lot of classes who go on a class walk during the period, especially if they see little brain breaks, if they see the kids kind of just need to get up and get some fresh air. If you've been to SMS, you know it's easy to walk outside, and so it's a great place to go for a walk. And so those are some of the things I think we've done. You know, we have the fishbowl, so very often we have kids who, they're going to the bathroom, they take a break, and they just kind of walk around and do a lap or two. We'll pop out, check on kids, fist bump them, make sure they're doing okay, and get them back to class. So those are some of the things that we're doing.
That you're already doing. Okay, thank you.
No, we've actually had a request from several parents about whether we could have a midday nutrition break.
Yeah.
Parents being concerned that the time of the day so they get lunch is too long.
Yeah.
So I was like, we haven't talked anymore about that, but I fielded several calls.
I don't know where it is right now, but I know when I was looking at schedules at lots of schools a few years ago, many of them had kind of that mid-morning, like anywhere from 10 to 30-minute thing where students could get food, could whatever. Yeah, check and connect.
When we placed advisory in our schedule, we placed it after second period, and that was kind of for many reasons, but there was also a factor of that as well. So a lot of others as well, but.
Okay,
Hey, Deb,
that's good to know.
Andre, I think you're up.
All right. All right, before I do go on to the next slide, I do want to say one thing. I know to respect your time and your bandwidth because you have a lot of data you just went through. But I want to be intentional, but I also want to do this. I want to provide you a lens of the team looked at this data. And that's really simple. There's peaks and valleys. We all see peaks and valleys all the time. But one of the things, those are opportunities. A top and a bottom is always an opportunity, right? To climb or to fly. A lot of times what happens is we look at the data and our eyes go to red, right? We go to down here. And a lot of times, they're fine up there. They're waiting for us, but hey, when are we gonna fly? Like, let me go, right? Let me fly. So it's really important that we understand both of those, spectrums are really important when we go through this data. And so one of the things that we also do is let's look at it as an opportunity, right? It's not an ending point to be on the bottom or to be on the top, it's a sending point. So whether the altitude's up, out, or just climbing, that's what we want to do. So just keep in mind when you look at these, it's really important. But one of the things that we look at this proficiency trend, that is one of the things, I know Melissa, you brought this up, is 6th grade. And it's really important. We see this, we're aware of it. We're trying to figure out where is the best intentional instructional strategies. You've heard UDL, aka Moodle. Got to change it up a little bit, it's getting a little late. But one of the strategies we want to make sure is we want to do a better job of making sure that the teachers have a common language around that UDL. It's new, right? It's newer, but we want to make sure that we have common language around it and we're utilizing it in the best way possible, right? So a lot of that's coming through the PD, a lot of that's coming through our own evaluation cycles when we're doing observations with the teachers. One other thing too I want you to look at too, just to kind of get this thing through forward, is that 6th grade. If you look across, I'm going to use a term that I know these two may know, a 0.5. Anyway, maybe 0.5. 0.5 is per camera for the youngsters. Be like, I'm going to show that 0.5. Kind of get it, right? So on the bottom down here, that's going to be more of a breakdown. So it's going to like blow up from the actual 2024 last year, looking at level 1s and 2s. And we realize we're looking at those level 1s and 2s, again, those are opportunities. And we're trying to make sure that we address those opportunities and meet those kids where they are currently, and to move them up, right? And so how we break that down is really important. Jen will talk about the more strategic purpose of that. So just to kind of go through the ELA portion of it. And then also this is going to be another one. This is an interesting one as far as the cohort following along. I call this the rebound. If you look across the board and you look at the go 56, again, that does a pretty steady, consistent manner. But then there's that 7th grade rebound. Instead of it being a rebound, we really want a slingshot, right? And so in order for us to do that, we have to be fine-tuned and focused in on that 6th grade. And again, it's where energy flows is where focus goes. We got to make sure we want to focus on those things. And then the big one is the SGP. So the SGP is, obviously this is a great kind of monitoring system that's been awesome. One of the things I know you hear about is get the red down, right? But it's how. And then one of the things that we got to make sure is, if you look at that median score, at least for us, we're at that 41, consistently across the board, that 6th grade, that transition. And so we're doing a lot of PD around how does that look, what are some things that we can better assist the onboard process and communicate more effectively, even with the 6th grade team to the 5th grade team. I know that's necessarily something we think about a lot of times, but it is important, right? Other things we got to make sure to understand too is to celebrate the other ones, and that's maybe the high growth too. So there is those high growth, and again, going back to ascending point, we still want to make sure we are addressing those at a high level of DOK4, and anything that we do is making sure we continue to push and challenge.
Well, and can I just make sure the high growth does not mean high achievement. So there's still
correct. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You mentioned the point about only focusing on negative. It's very obvious that we want to lift everybody up, but at the same time, my personal acknowledgement is the team is awesome, so we celebrate all the things that you do. So we are watching the high flyers, but at the same time, we are just, that's the focus area.
Appreciate it. For sure, appreciate it.
Thanks for saying that.
Yeah, I'm sucking up.
When talking math, I was we were personally so pleased with our math growth that I actually wanted to invite our whole math team in here and publicly thank them for the hard work they did. Even in 6th grade where we didn't get the growth that we were hoping for, the hard work that our math teachers did last year, and I can speak for like every math teacher in the middle school. I mean, in all the years I've done admin, I would never put that much pressure on a group of teachers ever that I've ever seen. I mean, they were like truly in the arena. Like it was a lot of meetings with tears, a lot of uncomfortable conversations. We were in classrooms all the time. I did with data sheets. I mean, even Dan came into the classrooms with it. Ginger came into the classrooms with data sheets. I mean, we put so much pressure or poured in so much support, depending on how you, hopefully they didn't feel the pressure, but they felt the support. The results, I mean, our student growth goals, each of them, you know, are that to get that green, Dan always says, get the green triangle, just get the green triangle. And that's 3%. And like, personally for us, for 8th grade to get 22%, I mean, it was just amazing. And I just couldn't be more proud of my teachers and our teachers. So I just wanted to say that because they truly were in the arena. Like the spotlight, and they knew it. Spotlight was on them, and I felt like the growth that they showed, and just we tried to capture in the video we showed you guys last year, but just like the learning experience the kids get now is so much better, and it's really, really exciting. So. As we're looking through the math trends, you know, like I said, we're not, we were just thrilled. Joel actually and I were looking at this today, and he goes, 8th grade was only 13. He goes, I thought you guys got 18%, but which is funny. And 6th grade, you know, we've been kind of talking about how that happened, and obviously, you know, not where the mark is, but we have a plan moving forward. I'll kind of share with that in a minute. And then like our SGP, Renee, like you said, that's all kids, and 60% it's almost double anything else in the district. It's pretty awesome. So with literacy, the couple of things that we're focusing on, when we looked at the target data was really interesting. You know, all schools were kind of similar, but a little bit different. Ours, like with reading, we're doing pretty good, you know, with the exception of inference. And it was pretty much red. You know, you get the red on all 3 grade levels. Our teachers, we looked at that, we kind of, back in June, and we came up with a plan. One thing we just decided to do though is like, how do you teach inference? So everyone knows inference, right? You know, you basically take what you learn in the little passage, your background knowledge, and then you come up with new meaning. But when we look at tools for teachers, I'm not sure if you guys have ever had a chance to check this out. Let's hope this works because it's kind of cool. We've been using these tools for teachers a lot more to show teachers, like, this is the type of question they're asking. And it's not like we're doing it to like cheat the test. We're doing it because this is really good learning. And so if you see this is an example. Instead of what did the author mean, take your background knowledge, you know, what did you learn? What did you know? Put together an inference. This task is actually, you read someone's article or thing about a band trip, and then they give you the inference, and then they say from these 4 quotes which best summarizes it. And you start thinking like, well, that is a lot higher thinking than, you know, level thinking than
Oh my gosh.
you know, so when our teachers learn that, how do I get out of this now? Did I mess this up? Escape didn't work. Oh well. Can I go to the next one? How do I get out of that? Let me take a look. But so anyway, long story short, like this morning I was talking to one of my 8th grade ELA teachers, and I was telling her this is what we were talking about, and she's like, ironically enough, that's what we're working on tomorrow. And our new social studies curriculum, one of the pilots that we're doing actually has a ton of inference in it. So we know that's gonna really help. Please tell me it's this one. Nope. It is not. It's this one.
Nope.
I don't see it on the top.
I'm so sorry. That's not it. Where did I move it?
Closed it.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I can just talk through it if you want me to. You've already seen the slides. Can you guys see it on yours, or are you controlled by mine?
We're controlled,
Yes,
but we've got
I
it.
thought it was going to be all great and show you guys these things. I'll talk through the next links and not click on it. So just like in our inference, it was like kind of or with reading, it showed just that. With inference, writing was kind of a bloodbath. You open it up and you're like, ugh, it's a lot of red. But it makes sense because we didn't do a lot of focus on ELA last year, and quite honestly, since COVID, we haven't done a huge focus on our whole staff in writing at all. So it's not a surprise that it's not good. And it could get better probably pretty quickly. We're hoping, crossing our fingers. So the example that I was going to show is like the brief text, the revised brief text. You would think, oh, read an article in Science, write a brief summary. Well, that's not at all what they're being asked to do. On that link, if you ever click on it, it is actually it has an art or like basically a paper that someone wrote. And then it says, write the introductory paragraph for this. So it's like a 5-paragraph essay, and they ask you, write the introductory paragraph. Well, we never do that, right? But that's such good learning, and like with Dan's big push with AI, right? You know, that's a useful tool. Use AI to come up with some ideas, but now put it in your own words. So the teachers are starting to kind of see those things as like, oh man, this is a different way of looking at these things that we traditionally looked at the same way. So we're really hoping that's going to work. Real quick, we got to move to 702. District writing assessment. That is new this year for the first time in 4 years as well. I was there for the 8th grade. It was awesome watching 6 teachers in a room with student work in front of them and talking about how they taught it, how they're going to assess it, and then how they're going to give feedback to kids. It was so cool. And ironically enough, the conversation we had was, why is there, what is this transition? Like, we know by sophomore year we're crushing scores, right, in ELA, but what's going on with 6th grade? And we actually we're going to look into it more, but our thought is our 6th grade teachers might be like, they might be having too low of expectations. So they want to meet, 6th grade teachers want to meet with 5th grade teachers in the spring, once kind of the haze in the barn, and kind of figure out, what are you asking your kids to do? What work are they doing? So that they're not having the expectations down there. So it's pretty cool stuff. Sorry, I'll move quickly here. Math, they talked about a bunch of stuff. We have that kind of a lower 6th grade. One of the things we kind of realized by going through the data with our with not quite hitting the mark with 6th grade was that we were getting kind of too big of a group. Like our tier 2 wasn't effective. So one exciting thing that we're doing this year, Rose Wilds came up to me the other day. She's always thinking of new ways that just implement cool stuff. And so she said, hey, we just took a big test. Chapter 2, it's multiplying and dividing fractions. This is a pivotal thing for 6th graders. 20 of my kids failed. I want to take, we have an enrichment kind of like they do. I want to take all 20 kids into my enrichment and until they've mastered the content. And once, one by one, they show mastery, they're out and they're in something fun. And that's not the way we've ever done it before, but it's much more in line with, you know, where we're going with Andrea in the law. She's like, can I do it? I'm like, of course, go sell it to 6th grade, let's do it. So we're actually doing that in 6th grade, and we're looking at piloting it in 7th in ELA and 8th in math as well. So that's been really exciting. Another thing that I can't show you right now, but if you want to click on everyday lessons, Joel has a really cool outline, scope and sequence for each grade level. And what he's embedded is tools for teacher warm-ups for where he could find it into the lesson. So teachers are just like, oh, today is 4.3. Oh, there's a warm-up? Great. And they're getting the tools for teacher, the question right there. Also, we found with 6th grade our 6th grade is we have a differentiation day every like 3 or 4 days. Our teachers were using it to just strictly remediate. Well, our PD this year is going to be on how do we remediate for who needs the remediation, but the kids who got it, how do we challenge them? So it's actually going to be, we're hoping it's going to be really, really cool. That's it. Sorry. I was trying to go as fast as I could.
What I heard, the last comment about is warm-up is really special because it's very easy not to innovate ourselves as teachers. But you know, if you provide the tools, I think it's easier to change how we teach or how we inspire the students, and also get ideas because you know it takes a lot of work to get ideas. So I really like that.
The
Yeah.
but they now are getting way more comfortable with the acceleration piece
Right.
and the, you know, the mitigation piece.
And that actually segues really good with Melissa, your question about like, does everyone get the same PD? Well, everyone's has a different comfort, like what we learned as we were like putting this pressure on math, everyone had a different comfort level with, here's a question, everyone get up on the whiteboards with your groups and start working on it. I mean, like kind of the teachers who like control, that's really hard. So the PD, like the working with them was different than, you know, like Cam, sorry, 8th grade teacher. I mean, she's on like 6 Facebook groups that have done this already, and she's talking to teachers across the country on a different way. So kind of combining those two has really been exciting, and the results, you know, show it's been pretty effective. All right, sorry, you said 30 minutes, but we're way over. Andre's got
Jeff,
yes.
thank you so much for sharing how much work went into math last year. I think that's something obviously you guys know, and of adopting a new curriculum, okay, that's going to be a big lift, but that is a very different expression of what went on than anything I've been able to hear before. So thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you for working that hard with them. And thank you, all of you out there who may or may not ever hear this. Thank you for doing it.
That's nice. Yeah, thanks for saying that. It was really hard. It was. I mean, there was like days where we would do a walkthrough, and I'd call Megan, and I'd be like, oh crap, I saw another pay teacher worksheet, what am I gonna do? And then it was like, you know, she talked me off the ledge, and okay, just meet with the teacher, it's fine, you know. But it was hard, but it was really good. And I just, like I said, they were in the arena, because all lights were all shining on them, and you know, they delivered, which is awesome.
Well, I appreciate that people did that. Sometimes it can be a long time to implement something, and sometimes it's the right time to make it a short time. So thank you.
No, totally. And I think, quite honestly, just personally from our building, it was a little embarrassing when OSBI report card has us at under 50% pass rate for math. I mean, it was embarrassing, you know, and I think none of us felt good about that. I know you guys didn't, but we were pretty embarrassed. So I think the opportunity to like really want to, and we had fun too. Don't get me wrong. Like we did a bunch of like we did some studies on positive the positive effects of happiness before tests. So like we gave kids little what were those little suckers, like little lollipops that everyone got before they took the test. And so we did some fun stuff too. But it was a lot of hard work.
I love it.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
As Andre, you go up there, I would say we are hearing too with math that our 6th grade teachers are like, the kids are coming in just like every year it's getting better and better. So it is true though, we cannot lower the bar, but the teachers are like, wow, they've got this already. We can move forward. So that's good for our whole system.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I'm the last one here with the baton. Yeah. All right, you're ready. All right. So I do want to say though, this one's an interesting one. I thought about this one a lot because I know we went through the data, we went through all the instructional strategies, talking about UBL, and then also our strategic plan going through forward. This one is incredibly important to all of us. Number one, I'm pretty sure I did the numbers right. We are responsible for 13 human beings below us. And I know a lot of us are parents here too. And the first thing I always want to make sure whenever I drop my kids off anywhere, do they feel safe? Do they feel like they're being belonged and being welcomed? And that's my number one thing as a parent, right? Like that's the number one thing. And it's a hard thing to try to even get a metric on that, right? How do you measure a smile or measure enthusiasm? How do you measure consistency? Like, I can't wait to go to school today. And so I really want to make sure that you guys understand the importance that we have as administrators, but also as parents. And we want to make sure we meet every single kid that walks through that door where they are. And I think that's incredibly important. We want to make sure to articulate that here today, but also articulate that to anybody who's watching at home, but also anybody who's walking in and communicating and partnering with parents. Because at the end of the day, they're sending us their most prized possession at the end of the day. And so as a parent, I realize that. And so when we talk about this, before I go into the cake, I want to go into the ingredients. So some of the ingredients, I know Josh and Michelle kind of covered a little bit already, But in terms of like the growth and what it talks about in the growth, and I'll say tier one a lot. A lot of times when I say tier one, if I say tier one at Twin Falls, we mean swag. We mean the student culture committee. It has like a lot of different words, but at the end of the day, what it is we want to make sure we're putting kids at a position where we're recognizing them, we're praising them, we're celebrating them, and so all of those things are going to fall into these little categories we have here. The first one, of course, is like that growth targets. I'm getting older, I can't even look at that anymore. So in other words, for targets areas, it's going to be looking at like feedback. One of the things we're really excited for is, I know you hear surveys a lot. We hear all these surveys. One of the things that we're really proud of is the Tier 1 team, aka SWAG team. And for those of you who don't know, service, work ethic, act with dignity, and grit. Some of you may, I know some of you have Ravens. You might even have a swag buck fall onto the floor in the laundry room sometimes. Those are going around a lot. But the idea is the team got together and we realized we got to get ahead of it. I want to be more proactive and less reactive. And so what we do now is we have grade level teams every other week, and they have a screener of sorts. And on that screener talks about the different behaviors. And what happens is every time we get those back, the team looks at that and we identify before it even happens. So we get kind of like a temperature check. Based on that temperature check, then what we do is look at some PD around giving it to either the grade level or the whole entire school. So that way we can really acknowledge it and hit it right away before we're like, okay, what do we do? It happened, what do we do now? And so that's been going really good. The conversations are more intentional with the grade level teams. Jeff and I, we both go to each grade level team to listen and collaborate and calibrate with the team. So it's been nothing but positive praise from the staff, and they appreciate that. So that's a new thing this year. Again, you're going to be hearing feedback and screeners. The other thing too is when we look at the metric piece, we're looking at attendance data, of course, the attendance going up, and then also in terms of the referrals, Swiss forms, you've heard Swiss forms, the behavior trackers, and those going down. Pretty simple, however, it's way more complex than that, right? Because culture, and I always say this, like schools themselves are where we're in direct competition is, believe it or not, it's TikTok, it's Netflix. I mean, it's a real thing. So I always say that because when a kid leaves school, they have everything else coming at them. And so how are we making sure to give them an opportunity to really be coming in, being belonging, being welcomed, listening to them, having a voice, putting those areas where they can go to, whether it be a small group, whether it be a club. We talk about clubs, which have been very important. But one of the things that we've done here at Twin Falls is with swag, we brought back a lot of the old traditions and kind of wiped the swag all over it. So we have a Raven stick, we have Raven rallies. We were trying to like build up our game to Mount Si. But we have these awesome opportunities to recognize kids and all the awesome things they do. We even have Student of the Month. That was a new thing last year. So every month that goes out in a parent square. We have a wall for it. We have competitions between 6th, 7th, and 8th. And so who's the cleanest hallways, who's the cleanest lunch. So there's pride, right? And the thing that's really important for kids is that's a home away from home. When they come to Twin Falls, that's their home, right? They want to feel welcomed, but they also want to take care of it. Right? So it's important to us to make sure we would continue to acknowledge that work and all that effort, and then making sure that every time a kid walks by, I go out of my, run a kid down and be like, good morning, how are we doing today?
Yes.
Right? And so those little small things are incredibly important. Again, you never know, because at the end of the day, any given day, you might be your kid's best hope. You just never know. So again, just to go back to that culture piece is important. And then how are we assessing growth? We talked about that a little bit, going back and forth here, and that's looking at the behavior tracking, like Swiss forms and whatnot. Observational data, I did talk about that. That has more of like a formal term. Observational data, we've been talking about like looking at the hallway. So we have our custodians in on it too. They give out awards, and so there's a point system on each hallway. And so like, 6th grade ahead of you guys. So 8th grade's kind of lagging behind a little bit, but we're getting there, we're working on them. But again, that competition piece provides and ignites pride in that grade, in the school, right? And so it's an awesome thing to see, and we continue to develop it through that Tier 1 team, which is that swag. And then the last one here, that professional development, we talked a little bit about that screener, how it pulls out before we be reactive, more proactive, providing PD, providing feedback. We have our other teams, what is kind of a tier 2, tier 3 mix, and that's more of an RST team, a Raven support team. That we've talked about the tier 1 team being the hype team, the tier 2 team being more like the, as far as accommodating for small groups, that 15% of kids that just need a little extra reminder or tailored. And then you have our tier 3 things in terms of like the tier 3 accommodations, interventions for those unique students and or the problems that they may be having outside of school. So we really want to make sure that we can cover all those things, but I did want to make an emphasis, the importance of this one. I mean, yeah, we have data around attendance, yeah, we have data around behavior forms, but man, it is so incredibly important. Like, we are a fight against our lives because there's so many things when they leave, right? And I heard one thing about screen time and about how important it is. Now we're going less because there's more screen time in school. So it's balancing that too. And so all that to say that we really take this very seriously. We want to make sure a school is a place that's safe, that's welcoming, but above all, meeting kids where they are and doing our best to make sure that they can achieve their optimal performance every and each day. So, should I drop the mic? All right, now we're moving.
Yes, drop it.
I just want to say all of the new old swag stuff is sounding really cool, but having had 2 kids go through Twin Falls, you two have always had that kind of environment at the school and welcome the kids. And so all of this other stuff and the focus on it is awesome, but I just feel like you two especially, because I know these two, you've naturally brought that for as long as I've been there. So
Thank you.
I'd like to say thanks to the board too, because you can feel the excitement around the culture of well-being and opportunities piece. You can feel it, and I think that the work that all of our teams are doing is going to make a difference for kids. And we've attacked attendance in some ways, maybe more, I wouldn't say punitive, but we want to encourage them to be there, not hammer them for not, I guess.
Yep.
And sometimes you have to do that too. But I believe this piece in the strategic plan, and we talk about what we're doing in math, talk about what we're doing in ELA and all the things. This is going to help kids grow academically as well. So thank you all for that.
Absolutely. Yep, thank you. And my only comment is, awesome job, and totally the enthusiasm. And so you brought it up last year. It was scary, right? But I have to say, every single one of you owned it. No one came out and tried to sugarcoat it. No one came out and said, oh, they aren't really as bad as they are. Every single one of you came out and you owned it, and we got work to do. There were no excuses, and this says volumes, obviously, and we want to see, the kids excelling. But to me, it said volumes last year when you guys owned it. There weren't excuses. It was, we have work to do, and you guys did it. So it's awesome job.
I just appreciate how much you guys are trying to focus on this culture that you're trying to build, especially what you're doing at Twin Falls, and with these rallies and the Pride Stick, and trying to grow a community of students who enjoy going to school. And that'll be super helpful as they go into high school, and carrying that on and trying to build this feeling of enjoying going to school every day, and not necessarily having school being this dire thing that no one wants to, ever be in, or just prison-like environment. But it's going to be really helpful, especially for outside in the future. And I feel like you've already seen the difference probably at your middle schools, but appreciate that a lot.
I appreciate you using the word home. I know it's an uncomfortable word for a lot of educators to use about school. It's academic, it's this. But the reality is our kids are kids. And it doesn't matter if they're 6 or 16, they're kids. And we have them for a huge part of the day. And we are affecting how they grow up. We are helping them become who they're going to become. And that place where that's happening should feel like home. So thank you for using that word.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Okay, we are now moving on to board review and or action items. How about Ian? You didn't even get introduced and you're just coming up.
It's okay. Efficiency.
I know, 7:20. 9 minutes.
Oh, it's back. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Sorry, it's loading.
And we can assume that we've all looked at the slides, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Slides?
Question mark?
No, Henry, I did, I swear.
Henry said he wanted fun with numbers tonight on this.
Oh.
Next time I'll figure out a way to make some fun with numbers.
I was just about to ask. I was starting to get excited. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, fun with numbers can be fun.
So it doesn't like when you filmed. There's nothing. I think he might have paused it. The whole time I've not seen it. It's just been that. I've seen him. I just wanted. So have I in the past.
Okay. Thank you, Tyler. Let's see here. How do we go to the presentation view?
Your
Tab?
display settings should change it. It's trying to be fancy.
Top, middle.
Up on top.
All right, I'm done. Oh, there, display settings.
It's
Thank
now
you.
on our YouTube channel.
Did we at least get a video?
Just one of the early ones.
Next one.
Did we get a video of that?
Just like they say.
really want a
No, it's
video.
not working.
Always terrible. You just gotta get it out of the way.
It's funny too, because I converted this from
You're from
Canva to
eternity.
PowerPoint because I'm more comfortable with PowerPoint than apparently I can't make it work. So, okay, so we wanted to update the board on some questions you had from the discussion we had last board meeting about Opstead improvements. And again, we are looking at developing the site that we purchased in front of the school in order to separate car and bus traffic. And we had some really good conversations about that in the last board meeting as far as how to do that. And you can see this would be the car entrance in the red with a sidewalk below it. And that would be the base way to separate car and bus traffic. And then we had talked about a couple of options on how to further develop that property based on cost and maybe some considerations for how many cars we can hold when parents are trying to line up and pick up kids in the afternoon. So what I heard from you at the last discussion was the option 1 and 2 weren't really great solutions. And so let's look at option 3 and a full build out with answering a few questions on that. So we'll hope to do that tonight. Option 3 would look like this, where we have that entrance on the south side with a separate queuing lane to kind of get cars in place for drop off and pickup. And the red driveway is essentially for through traffic to the parking lot and then to exit out of the area. And really the difference between option 3 and 4 is what do you do with the space inside of that area? Do you leave it as grass and save money and just let there be overflow parking for events and things? Or do you pave it and turn it into extra parking? And that's really the crux of the question we were talking about last board meeting, and this is what kind of the full build out would look like. Would add quite a number of parking spots to the facility and provide a more probably finished look, I would say, and doubles the number of cars that we can get off of the streets as they wait for kids to get out. So the cost estimate difference, option 3 would be about this is all estimates, so until we go to bid and go through a full review with the city and permitting, things could change, but about $730,000 for the option 3 or a full build out would be 1.4. So the questions that we had were, do either of these impact our potential future development of Opstead, and
we're using state match funds for this. What other needs do we have? And let's kind of get a more holistic approach to, you know, what else is out there so that you can make a good informed decision on whether or not it's worth that extra $700,000 for full development. So what I brought here is when NAC Architecture helped us with the Capital Facilities Study Committee, we had looked at very initially in that process at a expansion remodel of Opstead versus a rebuild of Opstead. This is, and these were drawings done by NAC to help the committee envision what that could look like and how we could get after some of the things we were trying to add as improvements to the building. So this is as an expansion, you would bump the bus loop down past the building in order to expand parking. And I've overlaid then the option that we're considering where it's not a terrible, it kind of flows quite nicely. You would still have on this bottom, you know, a student walkway would probably go down the median of a parking strip and come across there. So it looks like it would be okay, it would fit okay. You know, ours, so that as I talked with Matt and the engineers, there's nothing in a remodel where developing this front property significantly changes the options of that. The recommendation from the committee was not a renovate and expansion, it was a rebuild of Opstead in our phase 2. And a rebuild would look something like this, where Opstead would get rebuilt on the play fields, and then the play fields would be eventually put where the existing building is. And so this is kind of how that layout would work. We have not done any design work on this, so this is very conceptual. In the concept, the student drop-off was up top near kind of the front of the building, and the bus loop was down off to the side of the building. And so if this were to be the final design and we were going to go through this and get bond authorization for this project 10 years down the road or 5 years down the road, I don't know when we would do it, you would basically probably just have your bus and car loop flip-flop. So the buses would come in on the red and the cars would go in on the old bus loop, and this kind of blue line, the blue lane would be for circulation or, you know, some parallel parking, and you could have access to the fields out here. So not terrible. I don't know how useful that parking is day-to-day activities when the school's going on, but it would still be useful for weekend events or for parking when there's an assembly or a concert at the school. So short answer was architects didn't see this being restrictive or reducing flexibility of future design options for Opstead. And then so the other capital needs. So we have kind of 3 buckets that I wanted to highlight for you of dollars that we're looking at. And I wanted to just highlight in the 2015 bond, we had other asset improvements. So these were other projects that we communicated to our voters when they approved that bond of things and improvements that we would do throughout the district. These are the ones that are still outstanding off of that list. So we had a general bucket of safety and security, and you can see the details of that. And then the preschool center is kind of the major one that's left over. A few of the ones that we didn't get after, such as the Fall City septic. As we launched this facilities committee, we said, let's hold off on replacing that septic until we know what the outcome of a potential bond or a replacement of Fall City would look like, because then we could just apply that money to the project instead of using it and then having to move the drain field anyway. The other one, just maybe not for tonight, but one of those items was the fields, and this was the grass improvements. And there was 2 fields in particular. One was the grass field inside the track at Mount Si High School, and the other one was improvements for the Chief Canham field. And then the Chief Canham money was then subsequently used in partnership with the Soccer Association to do a turf field down there. When we finished designing the high school and realized we were going to be building on the fields and replacing with turf fields, we held off on improving that grass field. Brandon also did some things as far as getting that field back up into shape. What we've noticed is with the turf fields, most of the activities are not happening on that field inside the track. I believe C teams used to practice on that.
No.
And so long time ago, didn't they?
Yeah,
I thought
long
C
time.
team soccer.
Yeah, but they've been on the baseball
So
fields
for a long time, they haven't been using that. It's not getting a ton of use. And so we're not sure that it's worth resodding that field just because of the usage that we're not seeing on there.
So that is some money available for something else to be redirected to look at, you know, do we look at turfing a Twin Falls middle school or something like that to kind of make some equity in there. Anyway, so that's, I'm holding all those monies because that's what we said in the bond, and so what we're talking about tonight is not touching any of the 2015 project money that is set aside for what we had said to the voters we would be taking care of. Does that make sense?
Yes.
The other thing that I just wanted to highlight is with some of the state matching funds that we received, that we have been able to do some other things that I think are important to note. One is purchasing the property that we're talking about tonight, but we've also had some, as time continues, we made all these assessments in 2014 as we developed the bond. And so with that state matching money, we were able to do some things at Chief Canum to really, I think, resolve some issues that were emerging, and instead of having to wait for a bond to do that and probably double the cost because of the repairs and the further damage that you would have. And so I think that was a good use of the additional state matching dollars and ultimately saves the taxpayer dollars and allows us to be able to address some of these things. And I think I bring that up I would suggest one way to look at how we spend the state matching dollars is it's really helpful to have for the emerging things that pop up. And a lot of times it's helpful for the things that aren't super visible. You know, exterior repairs to cracked stucco might not be super sexy when you're like going out to a bond, like look at the stucco we're gonna repair, right? And look at these air handling units that we're gonna update because they're 30 years old. Maybe that helps sell, I don't know, but it's helpful, I think, to have those state matching funds for the surprises as they come up. Versus some of the other things. Yeah, I think Gary had asked last meeting about playground equipment, and I checked with legal on that. The bond council felt like you could say that the playground equipment is could fit into that safety bucket, and you could probably use state matching funds for it. And that can also be something I think that it maybe takes a larger scope as a refresh of playgrounds, because that wasn't what we talked about in the 2015 bond. And I think that might resonate more with folks than let's replace some stucco or something. So anyway, as we kind of evaluate the other things, I think that's something a lens that I use, but might not be the right lens. So for the other capital needs, I worked with Brandon on, so what is now? What's kind of our hot spots? What are some things that we should be thinking about? We have about $3 to $4 million of state matching funds that are not assigned to anything. One of the things I'll also remind is the board is when we did do the 2015 bond, we did tell voters that any unused state matching funds, we would pay down the debt. So one option is to pay down the debt. It would change the tax rate by like a penny. So I don't know that folks would notice the difference, but I just want you to remember that that was one of the things that we said we would do. Or we can repurpose it and use it for other things as well. It's also saying, you know, as we address some of these, then we don't have to ask for it in the future bonds. So anyway, I think that's some context to remember.
Yep.
But we have $3 to $4 million of available state matching funds to do something with over the next bit of time. So we tried to prioritize these in urgent, like we think this is something we need to address in 0 to 2 years. Emerging, you know, it would be kind of a nice to have. We're currently okay. But maybe a 2 to 5 year window we think this can become, and then a monitoring like a 5+ years out. These would be really nice to have, but they're not have to haves, and we can explain some of the rationale behind them. That makes sense so far?
Mm-hmm.
How far do you want me to go into each of these things?
No.
Lots of shaking heads. Okay. So you'll see the list. Hopefully the description in the cells kind of gives you what we're talking about. This also starts to lay the groundwork for if we do go for a future bond, we would be revisiting this as far as, and do we include any of these things in an other asset improvement bucket in a future bond? But if you look at just the urgent level, kind of the reds, and we have $3 to $4 million, there's enough in there, I think, to address the reds and to do the full rebuild of the Stilson property at Austin. So that was my takeaway of that. You guys can definitely fill in your takeaways, and that's where we're at. So you want to tell me what you guys think?
Just put the previous screen so that it's easy to, yep, this is the one. I think we have done a great job in explaining where the money is, what we can use it for, and the priorities. The urgent and emerging is really well, documented. In my mind, looking at the full build out, I think since it does not have any conflict with either expansion or replacement of Ofsted, I would go with that full build out personally, because it provides a safe environment for parents parking during overflow rather than on dirt, and we get a lot of rain, so
Yeah, that's
muddy
what I
and
would
all kinds of stuff.
concern. Yeah, that would be my concern. We don't have grass fields here year round that we can use for parking. It would be,
Chief Cannon does. They all park on the grass.
they do, but I would especially with a new build. I mean, there was a house there that's going to be somewhat new soil. I don't know. I think the maintenance of that, I don't know. I think if we said we're doing it for safety, and if we're going to do it, we should do it right. I mean, if this is what you would recommend, it's a full build out and creating an actual parking in the middle.
I think if I were recommending, I think it makes sense. I think it is $700,000 that we talked
Yeah.
about that for the purpose of it. It is a lot of money.
Yep.
I think if we were saying, well, let's say that's 700 and that can be something we ask for in a future bond project, I feel like it just looks like it was incomplete.
Yeah.
And it could be, people could say, oh, they ran out of money, and so now they're asking for it again. Because I don't think people track that, hey, we actually did more than we said we were going to do with the bond money that we got. And so I personally like the idea of it being done and complete, and then when we ask for other things, there's no confusion to oh, we only partially did that.
Well, because, so how much more, so the full build out itself, basically paving the center, is $700,000.
Yes.
Because we need to prep it, we need to.
You have to add a lot more stormwater retention.
Yeah, which we should have done even if we hadn't have paved it, to be on. I mean, we either are going to use the center area or we're not going to use the center area, because we would need storm.
If we don't pave it, you don't need it, the extra stormwater, because
But
it's
we're
just
not going to
grass.
use it, then we won't use that for parking. That's a total,
It would get used for parking on
well,
overflow.
sure,
Totally.
okay. I will not be parking in there. If it's, I don't think you will get out, but yeah, it's my perspective. We did it for safety. We heard from the school. We did our due diligence around, yes, do we want to do this or did we not? Otherwise, we wouldn't have purchased the home, right? I agree. I think if we're going to do it, we need to do it right so that it doesn't look unfinished. It will get used regardless of what happens with any facility improvements. So that was a good question, just to make sure we weren't having
And it
something that would
reduces
be
the
waste.
traffic on the Stilston.
And it's a mess. It is a safety risk, and it's a mess. I know if Gary was here, he would, I don't know if any of your students went to Ofsted, but it's a mess. So.
As are other properties as well.
Yes.
We have a couple others that are
Yes.
Although
as much or more congested. They just don't have great solutions.
Yep.
Although I was initially hesitant about the price tag because it is a lot of money.
So much money.
I think hearing that there aren't even enough parking spots right now for the teachers during the school day, or barely enough, it leaves a couple extra. And then that means people are parking in random places. That's not
are a
safe.
mess.
It's just
Yeah.
Seeing it firsthand. Thank you for taking me out there. I heard from a parent who described the after hours events and what a nightmare that is. They're walking there in the dark because there's not enough parking. And this still won't be necessarily enough parking, but it will help. So I would definitely support just going all in on the parking as well.
It is a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
But I mean, if we're going to do it, we need to do it right. I think that the homeowners will be very happy because they won't have people blocking their driveways. And it's
yeah, I think that one of the conversations we often have is how what we do impacts the neighborhood and our relationship with the city. And I think that there's a lot of benefits to going ahead and making that parking usable and safe for everyone.
And the city's already approved this.
Well, so the base option we submitted for preliminary design, just to get feedback, we had to do permeability testing on the ground, so that
Yep.
was this last winter, and it actually did very well. It's
Oh,
very
good.
good soil and well draining soil, which helped us go with this stormwater
Awesome.
retention instead of a pond somewhere.
Yep.
And so
The
either
center
way,
would be a pond if we didn't pave it, by the way.
Or somewhere else.
I don't
It
know,
would
based
be a
on the
pond.
drainage, it would.
Okay. I'm just, if people parked in it, it's gonna be a pond.
Yeah.
All right. Do we
Okay.
want to take a vote?
Yep. Do you need a motion?
Well, probably.
Or do you need to?
Again, There's not really, I don't know, we're not spending the money yet because we haven't
Right.
gone through the permitting and gone through
Okay.
a contract.
So you just wanted a gist of what we're
It's good
thinking.
to know that everyone is in agreement so that we can change
Got it.
our design, submit for permitting, get ready to solicit a
Okay.
bid.
Perfect.
And then the board would probably take official action when the bid,
Okay.
the contract is.
Hopefully it comes in lower.
I mean, you're welcome to do a motion.
No, I don't think we need to. I think you know where.
Well, you know,
We're on
you
the
have a
record.
direction, right?
I just wanted it as an
We're
action
on
item,
YouTube.
so that
Yep.
folks know that like we're
TikTok's
making a
on this.
decision
Okay.
tonight
Yeah.
on.
Okay, thank you. All right, can we pop up the next agenda item on here? The policy 6702. And I know that you guys have already seen this. It sounds like my connection was a little hit or miss last week or the week before last, but Dan has made some modifications on here based on some of Gary's feedback and the board's feedback. So we're not taking full action on this because it'll go on the consent agenda. Is everybody good with this?
Yes.
All right. Moving along, policy 4130, Title I Parent and Family Engagement. Is this a new requirement? Is this why this is on here?
I
A
don't
new
believe
roster
this is
requirement.
new.
It's an update
Yeah.
to an existing.
Okay. Does anyone have any comments on it?
The only comment that I had when I read through was I 100% understand why this has to do with Title I. I'm just wondering if we should have a general family engagement policy, or if we just consider that.
Just doing business. That may fall more into a procedure where,
Yeah.
because this is, we legally have to have this, but yeah, I think
It's
we
kind
may.
of like, it's like, this is
We-
needed, but it's
yeah.
really, this is needed.
We might already have it covered in another
I looked
policy.
through all of the,
Yeah.
yes, I am this geek. I looked through all of the policies in this section, and I did not see comparable language for other categories. Anyway, and so I'm not saying, oh, we should, but
Yep.
that's where I was like, okay, I get
Right,
this, but
yeah.
like, is this something we should talk
This should
about?
be a no-brainer, right? I mean, this should be
Right,
operating procedure. So
right.
if we feel like we would want to create a new policy, I don't know if WASDA has one. We learned 5 years ago that we should not create policies outside of WASDA because it creates a lot of issues from
Okay.
updating.
Yeah, they have a couple that we don't, models that we don't have, but
Yeah.
it's not this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
This
Do,
one's specifically required for
Yeah.
Title I
Yeah.
funding.
Yeah, that's what I-
To
Yeah.
accept the funding, you
Yeah.
have to have.
yeah, we legally have to have this one. Yeah.
Yes.
So maybe we table that and
Okay.
maybe address that again, maybe do some research and see if we think that maybe in one of our procedures.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, if we could make sure we're covering
I
that
think we
somewhere.
definitely hit it in the strategic plan.
I
'cause
know.
We tied
Yeah.
that, we
That's what I was
tied on that a
thinking. Do we
lot,
need
right?
a
Well, and
policy?
that's what I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know, or is
I
it?
mean, it's really scary if we need a policy
Yeah.
for
I know.
Well,
agenda.
They can
I
also
think,
limit you
I
on
think
occasion.
anytime
Yeah.
you have something that is as complex as engaging families and the
Yep.
community,
Yeah.
it's good to have guidance around, just the philosophical framework and
Yeah.
the practices in play that are expected and those kind of things. It doesn't mean this is the right place to put it.
Yeah.
But I,
And the complexity is also why sometimes it can be difficult. in
Yeah, to try and
policy,
put it in
right?
there.
big picture.
Yeah.
Are we, in terms of this policy, are we okay with moving this on to the
Yeah.
consent agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Very good. Okay, it is 7:45 and future meeting dates, we can all see them. Sorry, it's getting late. We can all see them. We are going to send out a reminder because even me, myself, did not know exactly what the half-day looked like for secondary around Thanksgiving. Someone asked me and I was like, I don't know. I know we don't have all half-days anymore. It's just
And we
K through
did-
5, so.
And that went out yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh, I must not be
In
on that
the-
memo.
In the, what's it called, Connor? Not the summit, the,
I have no idea.
Parent Square?
what did the reminder about the secondary conferences go out the day? It
Weekly
was
summit,
okay.
yeah.
Did go out yesterday.
The summit, does that go to,
That's the school staff, though.
Everyone.
that doesn't go to
It went to,
parents, though?
what went to parents yesterday? Yeah.
Yeah. On Wednesday.
Oh, it does? I thought that was a staff one.
Oh, maybe I don't subscribe to that.
You do.
But we're on it.
It's also on the website.
Okay.
Okay, so we pushed on website too. Awesome. Very good. It's hard. It's all of my parent communications go to SVSD because I only have to choose. I can have to choose one.
Oh, no, you
So-
can, you can have your personal.
One is fine.
I'm gonna, Melissa, we'll get you taken care of before you leave tonight.
I get so many texts and.
Okay. I already get Parent Square and that's awesome. Can we send it out to Parent Square or did we already? And I missed it. Got it. Okay. Are we filming?
Yeah. YouTube.
Okay, so those are the future meeting dates. The one note is we are going to Wasta in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
So should be super fun. All right, so it
Next week.
is.
What? Next.
Next week.
Actually,
Next week,
next
yeah.
week, next Thursday.
I've been traveling for 4 weeks straight, so I don't really know what day
When
it is.
yeah.
Okay, it is 7:46 and we are going to adjourn into an executive session for the purpose of a review of a public employee.
So do we go
We're
off
gonna-
of this?
Back in there and give you a.
Oh, okay.
What's
Can I
that?
can I just turn my computer off now? Because it's over.
Oh, there will be no action to follow. If no one's
The
here,
board
but
is
if
on
you're
the
here, you can come in and I'll.
review and public